Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei was the Welsh sunshine after Raynare gets saved? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the SHADOWKING2030 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Issei walks down the hallway, his head bowed, feeling the weight of the students' disdainful glares. He clutches his books tightly, as if seeking solace in their familiarity. Whispers echo around him, filled with judgment and contempt. Student A. There goes Issei Haidu, the pervert. Student B. He's such a loser. How did Rias Gremory even choose him? Student C. It's a shame. Rias deserves someone better. This was the life of Issei Haidu. Newly reincarnated devil, he has only received judgment and contempt from his fellow peers, including his master Rias Gremory. Issei was killed by a fallen angel by the name of Raynare, and sensing potential in him Rias Gremory, a high-class Aries devil to the Gremory household, reincarnated him. Issei had a sacred gear, artifacts of immense power created by God, so humanity can protect themselves. However, the supernatural exploited this, recruiting various members from humanity into their factions and groups. Issei's sacred gear, however, was a mere twice critical and a dragon-type sacred gear that can boost Issei's abilities and physical strength only twice or times. Issei also was the biggest pervert in history. There can be an amount to the times he has peeped to the kendo club, and this was the reason he earned his lecherous reputation. However, there was one person who wanted to make Issei's life a living hell, and his name was Thomas Phoenix, the strongest young devil, future Mayu, and the current Shadow Dragon Emperor, his sacred gear being Naraka's ring, a small black ring with a skull from housing the evil dragon Ajuka. Thomas was everything a girl looked for in a boy. He had looks, power, money, and fame. Every girl fell to his knees, and so did Rias, as he was Rias' fiancé. Thomas considered Issei as nothing but an insignificant worm. What made things worse were Issei knew Thomas from childhood. Thomas made his life hell back then and still does too now. One time the bastard practically assaulted him for fun, and it caused him to be sent to the hospital. Issei's parents were worried when they arrived at the hospital, however Thomas the Sly basically told Issei's parents to not worry, as he would cover the bills, practically erasing any doubt Thomas did it. Issei didn't tell anything back because Thomas, being a high-class devil, could target his parents, and that's the last thing he needed. His shoulders slump with weariness as he reflects on yet another day filled with disdainful glances and harsh treatment from his fellow students. The weight of his lackluster reputation hangs heavy upon him, and the whispers of disapproval echo in his ears. Suddenly, without warning, Issei's feet are swept from under him, causing him to crash down onto the hard floor. He groans in pain, his body aching from the impact. Blinking through the haze, he looks up and sees Thomas Phoenix standing above him, wearing a smug expression of superiority. Issei. Groaning, what the hell? You little bastard. Why did you do that? Thomas. Glaring, coldly, how dare you question me, you insignificant fool. You should watch your tone and remember your place. Issei. Struggling to stand, my place. What gives you the right to treat me like this? Just because you're stronger doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Thomas. Smirking, strength is everything, Haidu. It's a lesson you need to learn, and I'm here to teach it to you. Consider yourself lucky to have caught my attention. As Issei struggles to regain his composure, the girls nearby, who had witnessed the encounter, erupt into excited squeals. Girls. Squealing, Kai. Thomas-kun is so cool. Issei's disbelief mounts as he witnesses the girls fawning over Thomas, their adoration contrasting sharply with the contempt he has endured. His heart sinks, burdened by a sense of isolation and injustice. Before Issei can gather his thoughts, Thomas seizes him by the throat, his grip tightening with a menacing force. Issei gasps for breath, his hands futilely attempting to pry Thomas's fingers away. Thomas. Choking Issei, you've become quite the dirty little mouse, haven't you? Leaving messes all around Kuo Academy. Someone needs to teach you some discipline. Issei's vision blurs, his desperate struggles to free himself growing weaker with each passing moment. Just when it seems he is on the verge of losing consciousness, a commanding voice cuts through the tension. Voice. Enough. Thomas, release him immediately. Thomas reluctantly loosens his grip, allowing Issei to collapse to the ground, gasping for air. He looks up and sees Rias, his beloved fiancée, standing there, annoyance in her face. Thomas smiles, unaffected by the interruption, and leans into Ria's cheek, a smug expression crossing his face. Thomas. My beloved fiancé, how are you? Rias giggles softly, reciprocating the on his cheek. Rias, I'm fine, thank you Thomas. The onlookers, captivated by the scene, swoon with admiration, their voices echoing in Issei's ears. Girls. Squealing, Rias Sama and Thomas-kun make the perfect couple. Issei's heart shatters into a million pieces, his love for Ria is overshadowed by the realization that he can never be the idealized figure that Thomas represents. With a heavy sigh, he turns away, his footsteps carrying him farther from the scene, leaving behind his shattered dreams. Morning Pav. Issei slowly awakens from his slumber, groaning as the weight of sleepiness lingers over him. His mind still clouded, he attempts to ignore the world outside his room. However, a piercing voice reaches his ears, filled with anger and impatience. Mickey. Shouting downstairs, boy, if you don't get your ass out here in the next minutes, I swear to God I will kick down the door and beat you black and blue till you look like a raisin. Issei jolts awake, fear gripping his heart as he realizes the seriousness of his mother's threat. With a sense of urgency, he shouts in response. Issei. Panicking, yes, Mom. Coming. He quickly throws off his blankets, racing against the clock. Issei takes a hasty shower, hastily dresses himself, and grabs a piece of toast from the kitchen before rushing toward the front door. Mickey. Calling out Issei, honey. What about your breakfast? Issei. Rushing, later, Mom. I'll be late if I don't get to school in 10 minutes. With his heart pounding and toast in hand, Issei dashes out the door, leaving his unfinished breakfast behind. As he disappears into the distance, his father, Goru Haidu, chuckles softly. Goru chuckling, ha, that boy is far too energetic for his own good. Mickey huffs, her apron fluttering as she crosses her arms. Mickey. He gets it from you, Goru. Always running late and causing a ruckus. With a playful grin, Goru embraces Mickey, the love between them evident despite their differing opinions. Gates of Kuo Academy. Issei's desperation intensifies as he sprints towards Kuo Academy, his heart racing in his chest. The sight of the closed gates, guarded by none other than Sona Shitori, the student council president, brings his hopes crashing down. He stops abruptly, panting heavily, his disappointment etched across his face. Issei. Looking up to the heavens, why must God do this to me? Sona, standing behind the gates, rubs her temples in annoyance, her patience wearing thin. She calls out to Issei, beckoning him to approach so she can reprimand him for his repeated tardiness. Issei, his spirits dampened, glumly walks toward the gates where Sona waits. Sona. With a stern tone, Issei, your track record of arriving late has reached new heights. I'm truly disappointed in your behavior. Issei's shoulders slump further as Sona enumerates his shortcomings, each word like a weight upon his already burdened soul. Sona doesn't mince her words as she addresses the issues head-on. Sona. You continuously peep on women while they're changing, your punctuality is abysmal, and your grades, well, they're far from stellar. It's clear that you haven't been taking your responsibilities seriously. Sona's voice carries a sharp edge, her disappointment evident in every word she utters. She makes it clear that Issei's actions have consequences that he must face. Sona. Firmly, there is no need for you to come to school today. I'm giving you the day off. Take this time to reflect on your behavior and understand the gravity of your actions. Leave now. Issei walks away irritated, sad and angry. Streets of Kuo. Issei, still seething with frustration after being kicked out of school for the day, continues walking aimlessly, his mind consumed by thoughts of his misfortunes. As he wanders, his eyes catch sight of a grand mansion looming in the distance. Recognition flickers within him as he recalls a familiar memory. Issei. Muttering, hey, isn't that Oji-sen's mansion? Flashback scene begins. The realization sends a surge of nostalgia through him as he reminisces about a time long ago. The scene shifts, transporting us to a rainy day where a younger Issei, around 8 years old, runs through the pouring rain, desperate to find shelter. Young Issei, drenched and disoriented, scans his surroundings with panic. This unfamiliar street is not the way to his home, leaving him lost, alone, and frightened. Tears mix with the rain on his face as he continues his futile search for solace. As young Issei walks, crying, he stumbles upon the imposing gates of the mansion. Exhausted and defeated, he collapses near the entrance, his legs crossed beneath him. Unbeknownst to him, a man within the mansion notices his plight, his heart filled with sympathy for the young lad. The man was tall, muscular, old, and had very light blonde hair tied into a ponytail with a beard and mustache, adding to his manliness. Inside the mansion, the man ponders the situation, wondering how Issei had ended up here and where his parents might be. Man worried and thinking, poor young lad. I wonder how he got here. He doesn't seem to be an orphan. Determined to offer assistance, he retrieves an umbrella and steps outside, opening the gates with a gentle creak. Issei startles at the sudden movement, instinctively stepping back, his fear palpable. Young Issei. Timidly, who are you? The man chuckles warmly, a sense of kindness emanating from him. Esconer. My name is Esconer, young one. Perhaps it is I who should be asking why you find yourself here, lost and alone. Issei, overwhelmed by the stranger's compassion, musters the courage to answer. Young Issei. Softly, I got lost in the rain. I don't know where my house is. Esconer's smile widens as he extends the umbrella toward Issei, an invitation for refuge. Esconer. Well, young boy, you needn't worry any longer. Come, take shelter in my home, and we shall find a way to reunite you with your family. May I know your name? Young Issei. It's Issei Haidu. Esconer. Well Issei lad, come in, have something to eat and clean yourself. You're quite drenched. Young Issei steps inside the mansion, his eyes widening in awe as he takes in the sight of the numerous ancient artifacts adorning the walls. He finds himself gawking at the remarkable collection, captivated by the stories they hold. Esconer, observing Issei's fascination, chuckles warmly, pride glimmering in his eyes. Esconer. Impressive, isn't it? These artifacts were gathered during my travels around the world. Issei nods eagerly, his youthful excitement bubbling over. Young Issei. OG-san's collection is really cool. Esconer, reminiscing on his own youthful days, marvels at Issei's enthusiasm, realizing how wonderful it would be to experience that childlike wonder once again. Esconer, thank you Issei. It warms my heart to see your excitement. As the conversation continues, Esconer gently probes Issei's memory, asking if he remembers any details about his parents' contact information. Issei furrows his brows, deep in thought, before a spark of remembrance lights up his face. Young Issei. I remember the house phone number. With a smile, Issei recites the number to Esconer, hopeful that it will lead to his reunion with his worried parents. Esconer, determined to help, takes out his own phone and dials the number, his voice calm as the call connects. Esconer. Speaking into the phone, hello. Is this Issei's house? Mickey, Issei's mother, answers on the other end, her voice filled with concern. Mickey. Yes, this is Issei's mother, Mickey. Is there a problem? Esconer's reassuring tone soothes Mickey's worries as he explains the situation. Esconer. There's no need to worry. My name is Esconer, and Issei got himself lost during the heavy rain. He ended up near my house, so he's currently with me. Relief washes over Mickey's voice as she asks about Issei's well-being. Mickey. Is my baby boy okay? Esconer's smile remains as he reassures her. Esconer. Yes, he's fine. I'll wait for you to come and pick him up. Mickey, determined to reach her son quickly, promises to arrive promptly. Mickey. I'm coming right now. Thank you so much for taking care of him, Esconer. With the phone call concluded, Esconer's gaze turns toward the bathroom located around the corner. Esconer. Issei, there are towels in the bathroom. Go and dry yourself while we wait for your mother. Issei nods, grateful for the offer, and heads towards the bathroom, his heart lighter, knowing that his parents are on their way to bring him back home. Issei steps out of the bathroom, freshly dried, and is greeted by the aroma of soup filling the air. Esconer, with a warm smile, offers Issei some soup, sensing the young boy's hunger. Issei eagerly nods, his stomach rumbling. Esconer carefully pours the soup into a bowl and hands it to Issei. Excitement gets the better of him, and Issei takes a hasty slurp, only to realize the soup is quite hot. Young Issei. Sputtering, ack. Esconer chuckles heartily, a twinkle in his eyes. Esconer. Boy, you need to calm down and eat slowly. Young Issei pouts adorably, learning a lesson in patience. They continue to eat, savoring the warmth of the soup, as Esconer begins sharing stories from his own youthful adventures. Issei listens with rapt attention, his eyes sparkling with wonder as Esconer's words paint vivid pictures in his imagination. Suddenly, the sound of the doorbell interrupts their conversation. Esconer rises from his seat and opens the door, revealing a brown-haired woman standing there, holding an umbrella. Esconer. Are you Mickey Haidu? Mickey nods, her eyes searching for Issei. Unable to contain her emotions, she pushes past Esconer and rushes to embrace her son, tears streaming down her face. Mickey. Oh, my baby, you're okay. Issei returns the hug with a bright smile, his heart brimming with joy. Young Issei. Mama. Esconer watches the tender scene unfold, his smile reflecting the warmth he feels within. Mickey composes herself and bows, expressing her gratitude to Esconer. Mickey. Thank you so much for taking care of my son. Esconer waves off her thanks with a humble gesture. Esconer. It was no trouble at all, Ms. Haidu. Mickey announces that they will be taking their leave, her motherly instincts urging her to bring Issei back home. Esconer nods in understanding, a gentle smile on his face. Issei, not wanting to leave, asks if he can visit again. Young Issei. OG-san, can I come visit you again? Esconer's smile widens, touched by the young boy's request. Esconer. Of course, Issei lad. You are always welcome here. Issei's face lights up with gratitude and he excitedly runs into Esconer's waiting arms, surprising the older man. Esconer's surprise quickly transforms into a warm embrace, his heart filled with affection. Esconer, you're welcome Issei. Thank you for visiting, my boy. Issei beams with gratitude, expressing his thanks to Esconer. Young Issei. Thank you, Oji-san. Young Issei, in his admiration for Esconer, has developed a close bond with the older man, forming a grandfather-grandson relationship. Their connection is accepted and respected by the neighborhood due to Esconer's reputation as a good-hearted individual. One day, after finishing school, Issei hurries toward Esconer's mansion, eager to spend time with his beloved Oji-san. As he passes by a dark alley, he hears unsettling cracking noises. A sense of curiosity mixed with unease compels Issei to venture closer, his voice trembling as he calls out. Young Issei. Hello? Is anybody there? No response reaches Issei's ears, amplifying his growing nervousness. Unbeknownst to him, a looming shadow lurks behind, inching closer with every passing moment. Suddenly, a giant hand grabs Issei's shoulder, causing him to scream in surprise. Young Issei. Screaming, ahhh. Issei turns around to see Esconer's concerned face, relief flooding his senses. Esconer raises an eyebrow, expressing his worry and confusion. Esconer? Issei, what are you doing here? Young Issei trembling. Hey Oji-san, heard noises in this alley, so I came to see what's wrong. Esconer raises an eyebrow. You heard noises and decided to investigate. In a dark alley, no less. Goodness, boy, you'll give your parents a heart attack one day. Issei blushes in embarrassment, realizing the recklessness of his actions. However, before he can respond, the cracking sound echoes once again, catching both their attention. Esconer's eyes narrow, his senses sharpening as he swiftly strikes the back of Issei's neck with a precise blow, causing the young boy to fall unconscious. Esconer? Determined, stay safe, Issei. With Issei safely unconscious, Esconer steps forward, his voice filled with authority and power. Esconer? Calling out, come out, stray devil. I can sense you. A monstrous creature emerges from the shadows, towering over 13 feet tall, with a scorpion-like body and a hideous upper half adorned with giant claws. Esconer assesses the beast before him, his demeanor unwavering. Esconer assesses the beast before him, his demeanor unwavering. Esconer? With a hint of admiration, what a beast you are. The stray devil hisses in arrogance, mocking Esconer's audacity for challenging him. Stray devil. You don't know who I am. I am Argus. One of the most powerful ultimate-class stray devils of all time. Esconer, undeterred by the creature's words, approaches calmly, his silence speaking volumes. Argus. Boasting, pathetic human, you dare challenge Argus the incurable. My poison is renowned among all devilkind as incurable, and yet you have the courage to stand up. Before Argus can finish his sentence, Esconer swiftly delivers a powerful bitch slap to the creature's face, sending him flying backward. The stray devil's boastful words are silenced as he struggles to regain his composure. The stray devil's boastful words are silenced as he struggles to regain his composure. Esconer? Assertive, a pitiful being like yourself, Argus cannot withstand my might. Argus hisses and growls, his frustration evident, proclaiming his intent to tear Esconer limb from limb and feast upon Issei. Argus enraged, you dare hit me? I will tear you from limb to limb and then I will feast on that child, points at Issei. Esconer's eyes burn with pride and arrogance as he retorts, his voice resonating with power. Esconer? With burning intensity, you say you will tear me? Who decided that? As Esconer's presence grows more radiant, a scorching heat permeates the surroundings, eclipsing his form in blinding light. Argus grows nervous, recognizing the aura of holy magic. Argus? Nervously, do you possess the power of a holy knight? Ignoring the question, Esconer's muscles surge with power, his stature growing to an impressive 8 feet as he radiates a divine energy that sets the surrounding area ablaze. Esconer? Declaring his dominance, you say you will feast on my lad. Who decided that? With a final surge of power, Esconer becomes a vessel of overwhelming might, his form exuding the brilliance of a true sun. He utters the words that seal Argus's fate. Esconer? Roaring I am's one who decides. Cruel sun. In Esconer's hands, a miniature sun materializes, its blinding radiance illuminating the area. He hurls the blazing orb at Argus, its impact unleashing an inferno of devastating power. As the miniature sun collides with Argus, the stray devil screams in agony, feeling himself being vaporized by the overwhelming attack. The light subsides, revealing only a pile of ash where Argus once stood. Esconer carries the unconscious Issei to his house, carefully laying him on the couch. However, as he does so, a sudden bout of coughing and choking overtakes Esconer, causing him to double over in pain. He spits out a substantial amount of blood, realizing the toll his powers have taken on his deteriorating health. Esconer? Clutching his chest, it's been too long since I last used sunshine. My condition, it's getting worse. Esconer gazes at Issei's peaceful sleeping form, contemplating the course of his own fate. He whispers to himself, acknowledging the passage of time and the weight of his past. Esconer? 300 years since the last war with the devils. They called me Esconer, the Sun Slayer, Devil Killer, the nightmare to the Satans. Once, I was the most powerful holy knight. Esconer sighs, reflecting on his existence and the conflicts he has faced. His thoughts turn to his leader, Meliodas, and the disdained Lucifer, also known as Satan, harbored for their group, the 7 deadly sins. Esconer was called the lion sin of pride, despite Lucifer being the sin of pride, hence Lucifer part hated him because of this. However, Lucifer part respected Esconer due to his immense strength. Esconer's gaze shifts back to Issei, the magic within him reacting to the sleeping boy. Esconer looks at his own chest in shock. Esconer? Astonished, Sunshine, are you sure? Is he the next? As if in response, an axe embedded on a stand in the wall trembles violently. Esconer turns to face it, acknowledging its agreement with Sunshine's judgment. Esconer? Determined, even you, Ridda, agree. His resolve solidifies, knowing what he must do to prevent Sunshine from falling into the wrong hands. Esconer glances at Issei, muttering the words that will forever change the young boy's destiny. Esconer? Lady of the Sun, grant the boy Issei Haidu the blessing of the light, for I, Esconer, the lion sin of pride, grant him sunshine, and name him as my successor. But these solemn words, a surge of divine energy envelops Issei and Esconer, the atmosphere in the room growing brighter and warmer. Issei's slumbering form seems to stir ever so slightly, as if touched by the very essence of sunshine itself. Esconer, despite the knowledge that his own end is nearing, has made his choice. He places his faith in Issei, believing that the young boy will carry on the legacy of sunshine, wielding it for the forces of humanity. As Esconer passes on his power to Issei, a sense of peace washes over him. He closes his eyes, feeling a final moment of tranquility. In his last moments, he sees the image of a beautiful woman with black hair, a mischievous smile, and golden eyes, and his voice cracks as he utters her name. Esconer? Whispering, Merlin. With a final glance at Issei, Esconer bids the young lad farewell, expressing his gratitude for their encounter. Esconer, a last smile, thank you for being my grandson, Issei. His eyes close, and he breathes his last, the weight of his legendary existence coming to rest. Issei wakes up, rubbing his neck, and is met with the lifeless form of Esconer. Shocked and disbelieving, Issei approaches, shaking Esconer's body, pleading for him to wake up. Tears prick at his eyes, his heart aching with grief. Young Issei. Shaking Esconer, Oji-san, you're playing a prank, right? Wake up. Please, wake up. No response comes, and Issei's desperation intensifies. He rushes to the telephone and dials for an ambulance, his voice filled with desperation and sorrow. Young Issei. Crying, please, save my Oji-san. He isn't waking up. The caller on the other end tries to calm Issei, assuring him that help is on the way, requesting the location. The ambulance arrives swiftly, and Esconer is taken for examination by the doctors. The doctor, with a solemn expression, examines Esconer, his gaze shifting sadly to Issei. Doctor? With regret, I'm sorry, child, but your Oji-san is gone. Issei, unable to believe the doctor's words, reacts with disbelief and anger. He throws a vase at the doctor, crying out in denial, refusing to accept the truth. Young Issei. Crying and shouting, no. Oji-san is not dead. You're a liar. He'll wake up any moment. Undeterred by Issei's outburst, the doctor approaches him and embraces him, offering a small comfort. Doctor? Softly, I'm sorry. Reluctantly, Issei allows himself to be embraced, his tears flowing as he questions the cruel reality. Young Issei. Crying, why? The funeral, attended by only Issei, Miki, and Goru, is a somber affair. Esconer had no relatives, nor children of his own. Issei weeps uncontrollably, his grief overwhelming him. Miki and Goru offer their support, attempting to console him, but they know that Issei will never be the same. From the entrance of the graveyard, a blonde-haired young boy observes the proceedings of Esconer's funeral. He sighs sadly, acknowledging the greatness of his old friend. Young boy. Whispering, rest in peace, old friend. You did great. The boy, with a dragon tattoo on his arm, gazes at Issei and smiles, knowing the weight of the power now bestowed upon him. Young boy. Smiling, so, you're Esconer's new successor, huh? Wonder what you'll do. Don't disappoint, Issei Haidu. Flashback end. Issei looks at the mansion, a small tears trickling down his cheek as he says a few words. Issei slightly smiling, miss you old man. But that Issei left unaware of the trials and the power he currently holds and what would exactly happen in his life. Issei, lost in thoughts and grateful for the temporary escape from the academy, takes a leisurely walk around Kuo. As he strolls, he can't help but feel a sense of relief, knowing he won't have to deal with Thomas and his harshness for the day. Caught up in his thoughts, Issei doesn't notice his surroundings and accidentally collides with someone. He falls to the ground, clutching his head, and looks up to see a girl around his age, wearing nun robes and a veil. Her beautiful blonde hair and emerald green eyes captivate Issei, but he quickly shakes off the distraction and gets up to help her. Her beautiful blonde hair and emerald green eyes captivate Issei, but he quickly shakes off the distraction and gets up to help her. Issei. Concerned, are you okay? I'm sorry, I should have been paying more attention. The girl smiles warmly, assuring him that she's fine and takes responsibility for not watching where she was going. Girl, it's alright. Accidents happen. I should have been more careful. Issei's curiosity is piqued and he asks if she's new to the town. Girl. Yes, I just arrived. I'm hoping to find the directions to the church. Issei offers to guide her and Asia claps her hands happily, expressing her gratitude. Asia. Cheerful, thank you so much. That would be wonderful. My name is Asia Argento, by the way. Issei introduces himself as well and the two begin their journey to the church together, engaging in light conversation along the way. As they walk, Issei discovers that Asia is a kind-hearted and compassionate person with a strong belief in helping others. He finds himself drawn to her warm personality and genuine nature. Arriving at the church, Issei bids Asia farewell, but not before exchanging contact information and promising to meet again soon. Asia smiles brightly, grateful for the new friend she has made in Kuo. Asia. Happily, I'm looking forward to seeing you again, Issei. Thank you for guiding me. Issei. Smiling, it was my pleasure, Asia. Take care. Issei's spirits are uplifted after his pleasant encounter with Asia. Checking his watch, he realizes it's time to head home and make the most of his day. However, his plans are abruptly interrupted when a red magic circle appears on the ground before him. Issei instinctively prepares himself for a confrontation. To his surprise, it's Ria's Gremory who emerges from the magic circle, her expression filled with anger. Ria strides forward and delivers a sharp slap across Issei's face, demanding to know where he was and reminding him of the club meeting they had scheduled. Ria's. Angry, where were you? Do you even remember that we had a club meeting today? Issei, taken aback by the sudden aggression, explains that he was kicked out of school for the day due to his lateness. He tries to reason with Ria's, but she dismisses his excuse, insisting that he should have been more punctual. Issei explaining, but it's just I was kicked out of school since I was late and. Ria's. Firmly, that's no excuse, Issei. You need to learn to be more responsible and show up on time. Gritting his teeth, Issei struggles to hold back a biting retort. He feels frustrated having to deal with Ria's demanding fiancé and now being berated by her for circumstances beyond his control. Ria's. Demanding, come to the occult research club tomorrow without fail, Issei, or else. With that, Ria's huffs in annoyance and walks away, leaving Issei seething with anger. Under his breath, he mutters a profanity-laced comment, expressing his frustration. Issei. Muttering, bitch. Feeling a mix of emotions, including anger and resentment, Issei contemplates his relationship with Rias and the challenges he constantly faces. However, he also acknowledges the importance of the occult research club to him and the connections he has made within it. Issei. Determined, fine, I'll go tomorrow. But I won't let her treat me like this forever. Next morning. The next morning, Issei wakes up early, determined to prove himself and attend the occult research club meeting on time. He gets ready and walks confidently to the clubroom. However, upon entering, he's met with a cold look from Kaneko Toju, a small girl with white hair and cat-like yellow eyes. Kaneko. Bluntly, Prez, the perv has arrived. Issei sweats a little at Kaneko's straightforward nature before entering the room. Inside, he faces indifferent looks from Rias, Kiba, Kaneko, and Ria's fiancé, Thomas Phoenix. Thomas mockingly taunts Issei, commenting on him, which only adds to Issei's discomfort. Thomas. Mocking, wow, didn't expect the perverted shit to be on time. Akeno, with her seductive charm, intervenes to support Issei, playfully telling Thomas not to aggravate him. Issei appreciates Akeno's kindness, as she's always been the one who accepts him for who he is, regardless of his perverted nature. Akeno playfully Ara Thomas-kun. No need to aggravate my little cowhide like that. She secretly gives Issei a supportive look, causing the brown-haired boy to blush. However, Thomas's malice-filled glance towards Issei doesn't go unnoticed, jealousy evident in his eyes. Rias informs Issei that he has a contract to fulfill at a specific address and orders him to complete it promptly. Issei nods in understanding and decides to leave to carry out his duty. As he heads towards the door, he hears a familiar voice call out to him. Akeno. Calling out, Issei Kun. Akeno catches up to him, her alluring presence making him blush slightly. She wishes him luck with a warm smile, boosting his confidence. Akeno. Best of luck, Issei-kun. You can do it. Issei's face turns even redder, flustered by her support. Akeno adds a teasing note. Akeno. Teasingly, and remember, I'll give you a special reward if you manage to finish it. Issei stammers in response, feeling embarrassed yet grateful for her encouragement. Issei stammering while read thanks Akeno-senpai, but I have to go bye. He thanks Akeno before dashing off to fulfill his contract, leaving Akeno giggling at his reaction. Address. Issei arrives at the address, feeling a sense of suspicion as there's no response to his ringing. Despite the unease, he slowly opens the door and enters, only to be met with a gruesome and horrifying sight. A man covered in blood, split in half, lies on the ground, and another crazy-looking man is ruthlessly gutting him. Issei, filled with rage and horror, demands the man to stop his actions immediately. Issei. Angered, stop this right now. What the hell are you doing? The man turns around, laughing like a maniac, showing no remorse for his heinous act. Crazy man. Maniacal laughter, oh, how fun. Another shitty devil to witness my glorious work. Issei, summoning his twice critical, tries to defend himself against the madman's actions. Crazy man. A sacred gear. Nothing against a holy weapon. He fires from his gun, hitting Issei's legs, causing excruciating pain and forcing Issei to fall. Crazy man. Mocking, painful, isn't it? It's holy magic, brat. Poison to your kind. But sadistically, the man points the gun at Issei's head, fully intent on ending the young devil's life. Freed. Taunting, toast to the death of a young devil like you. Oh, and by the way, my name is Fried Selizan. Just as Fried prepares to pull the trigger, a scream pierces the air, interrupting his murderous intent. Fried turns annoyed, and to Issei's shock, the person who screams is none other than Asia Argento. Issei. In shock, Asia. Asia, frightened and horrified by the scene before her, pleads for Fried to stop. Asia pleading, Father Fried. Please stop, Issei is my friend, you can't kill him. Issei can't help but express his incredulity at the situation. Issei. Incredulous, how the hell is this psycho a father from a church? Fried, annoyed by Issei's remark, snaps back, reiterating that Issei is a devil and therefore an enemy who deserves to die. Fried angry, my dear Asia, this boy you call a friend is a shitty devil. You cannot trust him for he is our enemy. Asia looks shocked and turns to Issei, seeking the truth. Asia. Worried, Issei, is what he's saying true? Issei, still in pain from his wounds, admits that he is a devil. Issei, that may be true, Asia. But all that time we spent was genuine. You're my true friend. Asia looks at Fried, pleading with him not to kill Issei, emphasizing that he is a good person. Asia, Father really is a good person, please don't kill him. Fried, growing more frustrated, yanks Asia's hair, berating her and calling her bitch, asserting his dominance over her. Fried. Angry, you think some low-class nun like you can order me? You've been a bad girl, Asia. In a fit of rage, Fried throws Asia against the wall and slashes his sword through her clothes, exposing her underwear. He then grabs her veil and throws it away, causing Asia to cry out and back up in fear. Asia. Crying, no, stop, please, no, Father Fried. Witnessing Asia's distress, Issei's rage boils over and he roars in fury. Issei. Roaring, don't touch my Issei. In that moment, the roars of both a dragon and a lion can be heard as Issei, despite his wounds, charges at Fried with a twice critical, repeatedly activating his boost ability. Issei. Chanting, boost, boost, boost. As Issei's aura intensifies, the surroundings grow warm as if the sun itself was now in the room, catching Fried off guard. Fried. Shocked, impossible. You're a devil. How are you using holy mag? Fried is cut off when Issei lands a powerful punch, sending his head flying out the window, severing it from his body. The intense battle reaches its brutal conclusion and the room is left in silence, with only the echoes of Issei's victorious roar lingering in the air. Issei stands, panting, his emotions still raw from protecting the girl he cares deeply for. Asia, tearful but relieved, looks at Issei with gratitude. Asia, tearful, thank you Issei. You saved me. Issei, catching his breath, looks back at Asia, his expression softening. Issei. Gentle, of course, Asia. I'll always protect you. As Issei stands there, catching his breath after the intense battle with Fried, he hears clapping behind him. He turns, only to come face to face with a familiar figure he thought he would never see again. It's Raynare, the fallen angel who killed him when he was still human. Issei's heart pounds in his chest, memories of that fateful encounter flooding back. Raynare tauntingly mocks Issei, reveling in his surprise and growth since their last encounter. Raynare. Tauntingly, well. I didn't expect the weakling of a human to have come this far. Asia, in a state of shock, whispers in disbelief. Asia. Whispering, Lady Raynare. Issei's eyes widen in disbelief as he turns to Asia, seeking an explanation. He asks how Asia knows Raynare. Raynare chuckles, her taunting voice echoing through the room. Raynare. Tauntingly, oh, little Asia here was part of the church that I work for as a fallen angel. quite the coincidence, isn't it? Issei's rage boils over at the sight of Raynare and he attempts to charge at her. However, his body fails him, exhausted from the adrenaline rush and injuries sustained in the battle with Fried. Issei falls to his knees, frustrated and weakened. Asia quickly scrambles to Issei's side, using her hands to emit a gentle green glow, which starts healing his wounds. Issei is shocked by the sudden healing and asks Asia what she did, wondering if it's a sacred gear. Asia, with a tinge of sadness, looks down and explains that it's her gift from God, called Twilight Healing. Asia. Softly, it's called Twilight Healing. It's my gift from God. I can use to heal others including devils. Issei, determined to protect Asia, instructs her to stay back as he prepares to confront Raynare once again. Issei angry stay back Asia. I'll deal with Raynare myself. With his twice critical at the ready, Issei braces himself for the battle. However, before he can make a move, a spear of light pierces through his legs, causing immense pain. Issei roars in frustration, feeling the agony of his injuries. Issei screaming in pain, not again. Above, in the sky, another fallen angel appears, calling out to Raynare. Raynare, we need to leave and take the girl as well. We need her for the sacred gear extraction. Raynare, in a mocking tone, bids farewell to Issei, taunting him with the hope that he won't miss Asia too much. Without hesitation, Raynare grabs Asia's hand and the two take off into the distance, leaving Issei helpless and filled with despair. Issei desperately tries to get up, shouting after them, his voice filled with anguish. Issei. Roaring, Asia, no. Give her back. However, Asia, with a look of resignation, speaks softly, her words filled with gratitude. Asia. Softly, thank you for being my first friend, Issei-kun. Issei's heart shatters as he watches Asia being taken away, unable to do anything to save her. The pain and helplessness consume him as he screams out in anguish. Issei. Roaring, Acii. As Issei clutches his injured legs, a red magic circle lights up on the ground and from it emerges Rias, along with the rest of the peerage. Issei can't help but groan inwardly, knowing that he's about to face their wrath for his reckless actions. Ria's eyes widen in shock as she takes in the scene before her, Issei's injured state and the lifeless body lying on the ground. She demands an explanation, her voice filled with both concern and frustration. Rias. Demanding, what in Satan's name happened here, Issei? Issei takes a deep breath and proceeds to explain everything that transpired encountering Fried, Raynare's appearance, and the heartbreaking abduction of Asia. Rias curses under her breath, her expression showing a mixture of anger and disdain. Before she can say anything else, Akeno darts forward, her voice filled with concern and a hint of reproach. Akeno. Shouting, Issei. How could you worry me like this? Why did you have to go so far? Look at you now. Akeno grabs Issei, checking for any worse injuries, her worry and frustration evident. Issei, feeling a mixture of embarrassment and gratitude, can only hang his head in response. While Akeno attends to Issei, Ria's previously concerned expression turns cold and she speaks in a stern tone. Rias. After you're healed, Issei, you need to come to the Orc at once. Confused by Ria's sudden change in demeanor, Issei wonders if he has done something wrong. The coldness in her tone feels unfamiliar, leaving him perplexed and uncertain. Issei. In his mind, why is Rias acting so cold? Did I do something wrong? As Issei contemplates Ria's behavior, he can't help but feel a sense of unease and apprehension about the upcoming meeting with the Occult Research Club. Issei, after receiving healing from Akeno, gathers the courage to enter the Orc. As he steps inside, he is greeted by Akeno's nervously smiling face, which offers him a small measure of comfort amidst the tension in the room. However, as he takes in the glares directed his way, a sense of unease settles over him. Thomas, in a state of outrage, gives Issei a murderous look, his anger radiating from him. Before Issei can even speak to address the situation. Thomas' shadow, dragon balance breaker. He is abruptly interrupted by the sound of Thomas activating his sacred gear's balance breaker, followed by a powerful punch that sends Issei crashing into a wall, causing it to crack under the impact. Issei grunts, coughing up blood, his confusion mixed with anger. Issei. Strained, what the was that for, asshole? Rias steps forward, her expression filled with a mix of disappointment and frustration. Without hesitation, she delivers a sharp slap to Issei's face, shocking him into silence. Issei's heart sinks as he listens to Ria's words, his world crumbling around him. Rias. Firmly, we were not saving Asia. She was an enemy of the devils. Issei tries to protest, his voice laced with desperation and disbelief. Issei. Struggling, no, there must be a mistake. Asia, she can't be an enemy. She's my friend. However, before he can finish his sentence, he feels a cold blade pressing against his neck. Issei's eyes widen as he looks at Kiba, who meets his gaze with a cold glare, his words cutting through Issei's heart. Kiba. Coldly, but whose words are final, Haidu. Forget about that girl. Akeno watches helplessly, torn between her loyalty to Rias and her concern for Issei. She is practically forbidden from interfering, her inner turmoil evident on her face. Akeno. Softly, Issei-kun. The weight of the situation presses down on Issei, leaving him feeling isolated and betrayed. The world he knew and the friendships he treasured are slipping away before his eyes. It is a devastating moment, filled with tension, pain, and shattered trust. Lost in his heartbreak and confusion, Issei is walking back home. He couldn't believe what his friend said. However, Issei is taken aback when he feels a warm embrace from behind. He turns to see Akeno, who offers him a reassuring smile. Akeno's presence brings a small flicker of hope to Issei's desolate state. Akeno. Encouragingly, Issei, I'm here for you. We can save Asia together. Issei, still reeling from the words spoken by Rias and Kiba, is shocked by Akeno's unwavering support. He questions why Akeno is willing to risk Ria's anger for his sake. Issei. Confused, why would you go against Rias for me, Akeno? Akeno's cheeks flush with a deep shade of red and she stammers out her words, barely audible. Akeno. Muttering softly, be because I love you. Issei, caught off guard by her low voice, strains to hear her words clearly. He asks her to repeat what she said, wanting to be sure he heard her correctly. Akeno's embarrassment intensifies as she blushes a crimson red. Akeno. Flustered, and nothing. I didn't say anything. Now, are we going to do this or not? Though Issei is momentarily confused by Akeno's attempt to dismiss her previous statement, her determination to support him shines through. He realizes that now is not the time for further discussion. They have a mission to save Asia, and Akeno's unwavering presence gives him the strength to push forward. Issei. Resolute, right. Let's do this, Akeno. In the dim light of the abandoned church, Issei and Akeno made their way cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. Akeno's voice broke the stillness, laced with concern. Issei, do you have any idea where Asia might be? Issei's brows furrowed as he recounted the encounter with Raynare. All I know is that Asia's being held captive here. Raynare mentioned something about extracting her sacred gear. Akeno's eyes widened in alarm, her voice tinged with urgency. Why didn't you tell me this sooner, Issei? If they succeed in extracting her sacred gear, Asia's life will be in grave danger. Issei blinked, his confusion evident. Wait, why is that such a bad thing? Akeno's frustration was palpable as she explained. Issei, the sacred gear is intertwined with the soul of its wielder. Extracting it is not just painful, it's fatal. No human can survive the process. Issei's eyes widened in realization, a surge of panic coursing through him. We need to save her, now. However, before they could react, a chilling voice pierced the air, not so fast. 3 figures descended from the treetops, their presence ominous and foreboding. At the forefront was the blue-haired woman, Raynare, who Issei had seen with Raynare. Beside her stood a figure in a trench coat and fedora, introducing himself as Donasik, and a lowly dressed in a maid outfit named Middled. Raynare's voice dripped with malevolence, her words laced with a sinister intent. Well, Issei. Lady Rhea saved you from Raynare once, but now we'll finish the job. Akeno stepped forward, her power crackling around her like a storm. Her voice was commanding. Issei, get in there and save Asia. I'll handle these intruders. Middled's annoyance was evident in her retort. We're not mere cannon fodder, you know. As the tension mounted, Akeno's eyes blazed with determination, and she spoke with an edge of intensity. This is it, Issei. Go save Asia. I'll hold them off. Issei's resolve solidified as he nodded to Akeno. Alright, I'll bring Asia back. The atmosphere in the main hall of the church was tense and charged with emotion as Issei burst through the doors, his heart pounding, and his eyes locked onto Asia's unconscious and form tied to the cross. His voice quivered with a mix of relief and anger. Asia. He rushed forward, ready to free her from her bonds and shelter her from this nightmare. But before Issei could reach her, a sudden impact resonated through the room as a light spear embedded itself in the ground, halting his advance. His eyes widened as his gaze shifted upwards, and there she was, Raynare, the one responsible for Asia's suffering and his death. Issei's anguish erupted into a fiery storm of rage as he bellowed, "You will pay, Raynare." His entire being seemed to tremble with fury. Raynare's voice was laced with taunting amusement. Let's see how far the once weak pervert has come. She seemed intrigued, as if she relished the prospect of witnessing Issei's transformation. Issei's sacred gear, the twice critical, responded to his intense emotions, and a surge of power coursed through him. The gear roared, its voice echoing within the chamber. Boost, 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 boost. But this time, something was different. The twice critical glowed an intense red, pulsating as if it was about to burst from within. With his newfound strength, Issei's speed increased exponentially, turning him into a blur as he materialized before Raynare. His voice held an unbreakable resolve. You won't harm Acii. He attacked with blinding speed, his gauntlet finding its mark in Raynare's abdomen. Blood spilled from her mouth as she was thrown backward, crashing against the wall. Issei's eyes blazed with an unyielding fire as he approached Raynare, his steps deliberate and full of purpose. He seized her by the head, his grip unrelenting as he brought her skull crashing down again and again, a symphony of agony escaping her lips with each impact. The room resonated with her anguished screams, the sound piercing the air. Finally, Issei's brutal assault culminated in a powerful punch that sent Raynare tumbling to the ground. Asia's relief was palpable as she let out a cry, watching Issei triumph over her tormentor. Raynare scrambled to her feet, her eyes wide with fear as she gazed into Issei's intense reptilian-like green eyes. She pleaded, her voice strained and desperate, "Issei, please. Spare me. I'm truly sorry. I really enjoyed our date. I know what I did was wrong, but I had orders, you understand, right?" Issei's voice was cold and unyielding, his words cutting through the tension like a blade. "It doesn't matter. My feelings for you died along with my old self." His tone dripped with disdain as he accused her of cowardice. "You're nothing more than a coward begging for mercy in the face of death." The tension in the room escalated as Issei prepared to deliver a final blow to Raynare, using his twice critical boost. Shadow Dragon. Balance breaker. However, his intentions were abruptly interrupted by a powerful force that struck him square in the face, sending him hurtling through the air. Groaning in pain, Issei struggled to his feet and saw the Shadow Dragon armor that had saved him the signature attire of Thomas Phoenix, the powerful young devil and Ria's fiancé. Raynare's reaction was a mixture of surprise and admiration as she blushed and stammered out a greeting, "Thomas-kun." Thomas's voice was laced with concern as he inquired about Raynare's well-being. "Raynare-chan, are you okay?" Prompting her to respond with a flustered "Hai. Issei's anger simmered beneath the surface, his emotions threatening to erupt. Just then, the tension was ratcheted up another notch as Ria's Grimoire, Issei's master, entered the room with her knight, Kiba, and her rook, Kaneko Taoju. Ria's gaze swept over Asia with evident disdain, her icy demeanor reflecting her displeasure. Ria's voice was cold and cutting as she addressed Issei, her gaze locked onto him. "Even after I declared Asia an enemy to the devils, you still defied my orders and attempted to save her, simply because she's your friend." Kiba's movements were swift as he used his knightly speed to restrain Issei, preventing him from acting out on his rage. Issei's protests were drowned out as he shouted, "Let go of me, you pretty ass boy, or else I'll." His words were abruptly cut short as Kaneko landed a precise blow to his head, rendering him unconscious. Rias let out a sigh of exasperation, her demeanor finally relaxing. Her gaze shifted towards Asia, her expression cold and calculated. Turning her attention to Thomas, she declared her intent to punish Issei for his disobedience. "We shall target what he cherishes." Without hesitation, Thomas moved with incredible speed, knocking Asia out with a single blow. Her anguished cry was heard Issei before she was rendered unconscious. Ria's voice carried an air of authority as she commanded everyone present, "Gather at the Orc headquarters." Her tone was an unspoken order, brooking no argument. Ria's then addresses with disdain come out Akeno. Akeno's meek entrance into the scene was met with Ria's wrathful gaze, her hand connecting with Akeno's cheek in a resounding slap. The question hung heavy in the air, her voice dripping with condemnation, "How dare you disobey my orders?" She promised to address Akeno's insubordination later, her gaze unwavering. Back at the Orc. Issei's consciousness slowly stirred as he found himself in an unfamiliar place. The scent of wood and aged books filled his senses, and as he blinked his eyes open, he realized he was in the Orc clubroom. Confusion momentarily clouded his mind, but the intense glares directed his way snapped him fully awake. Ria's Grimoire's piercing gaze locked onto him, flanked by the other members of the Occult Research Club. All, except Akeno, wore expressions of stern disapproval, while her teary eyes held a different story. As his heart raced, Issei tried to piece together what had happened. The last thing he remembered was a confrontation with Raynare, that deceitful fallen angel who had disguised herself as a human. But something had clearly transpired since then. Raynare stood there with a triumphant smirk, as if savoring the chaos she had unleashed. "Issei Haidu," Ria's voice cut through the heavy air, each word laden with a cold severity that sent shivers down his spine. "For disobeying the House of Grimoire and jeopardizing our standing, your punishment has been decided." A surge of anger coursed through Issei. He was about to voice his outrage when he noticed Raynare, the very person who had caused his current predicament, smirking at him. The words were swallowed back as Ria silenced him with a gesture. "Silence," Rias commanded, her tone brooking no argument. "Your voice is no longer of consequence. Your punishment is to bear witness to the destruction of the one you care for the most, Asia Argento. Her sacred gear will be granted to Raynare, who has willingly agreed to become my bishop." Issei's heart pounded in his chest, a mixture of rage and disbelief boiling within him. "Why is that bitch Raynare here?" He spat, unable to contain his emotions any longer. Akeno's eyes held a hint of sadness, but she remained silent, her voice choked back by an overwhelming sorrow. Kiba and Thomas, on the other hand, took immediate action. With an air of grim determination, they pinned Issei down, their expressions telling him that he was paying the price for his actions. Thomas smirking says your fault your punishment. The death of your dear friend is going to be in your hands Issei. Thomas now growls saying you put the honor of my fiancé's family in line, and for that suffer. Akeno's silent tears spoke volumes, her heart clearly heavy with the impending tragedy. Issei's heart pounded in his chest, a tempest of emotions churning within him. He could hardly bear the thought of Asia, his dear friend, meeting such a horrific fate. As Rias conjured a vast magic circle, the room seemed to darken. With a seamless transition, Issei found himself in the midst of the dense Kuo forest, where a haunting sight awaited him. Asia, bound to a tree stump, tears staining her delicate cheeks. His heart shattered at the sight of her tears, his desperation for her safety gnawing at his very being. His breath hitched, his anger shifting to a more profound and terrifying resolve. How dare they make his Asia cry? How dare they subject her to such agony? Issei's fists clenched, nails digging into his palms. This was a test of his strength, his willpower, and his love for Asia. Ria's voice reverberated, announcing the commencement of his punishment. The power of destruction, inherited from her mother, surged around her. An ominous magic, capable of obliterating anything it touched, reducing it to ash. Asia's tearful gaze met Issei's, and she spoke, her voice trembling but resolute. "Thank you, Issei-san," she murmured. "Thank you for being the first and greatest friend I've had." However, none had realized one thing. Since it had been some time after they brought in Asia and Issei, the night was gone, and the sun was slowly rising. When the rays of the sun hit Issei, it felt like a new energy went through him, making him feel stronger and more powerful. Issei's heart surged with a fierce mixture of emotions. He was trapped, helpless, but he refused to let Asia down. As the destructive energy closed in, a voice, a roar, echoed in his mind. A voice that spoke of power, of change, of salvation. "Do you want power, Issei Haidu?" The voice thundered, a dragon's roar echoing in its words. Issei's mind whirled, uncertainty and curiosity mingling. "Who are you?" he mentally questioned, his thoughts a maelstrom. "Do you wish to save the one you care for?" The voice inquired once more, its resonance striking at Issei's heart. "Do you wish to take revenge against those who betrayed you?" Issei's resolve solidified, a determination ignited deep within him. "Yes." He roared within his mind, his conviction echoing in the ethereal space. "Then say my name. And take my power." The draconian voice roared triumphantly, its challenge like a gauntlet thrown down before Issei. Images flooded his mind, flames consuming the battlefield, a colossal red dragon reigning supreme. The aura of dominance, the blazing gaze that held command over all. Armies of devils and angels getting annihilated left and right by flames that seemed to turn their very soul to ash. Armies of devils and angels getting annihilated left and right by flames that seemed to turn their very soul to ash. Issei's lips parted, the name tumbling from his mouth like a vow. "Drag why gotch," he whispered, a shiver running down his spine. The voice affirmed his utterance, confirming its identity. "Yes, indeed. I am your sacred gear now. I was disguised as a twice critical to see if you're truly worthy of my power. Now partner, let us do this." In the real world, the energy of destruction surged, inching ever closer to Asia. But the dawn had arrived, the first rays of sunlight touching Issei's skin. He felt a surge of energy, an awakening that seemed to transcend his physical limitations. Time seemed to slow as his connection with the dragon grew stronger, the power of Drag infusing him with strength beyond imagination. And then, with a single earth-shattering roar, Issei's transformation began. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Mode Sunshine. The words erupted from him like a battle cry, an explosion of red light engulfing him. Issei's aura sent Kiba and Thomas flying away. Issei then sped over to Asia's blur of pure red energy and stood in front of the oncoming attack. When the radiance dimmed, Issei stood transformed, a suit of draconic armor adorning his form, a sword of pure light clutched tightly in his hand. When the radiance dimmed, Issei stood transformed, a suit of draconic armor adorning his form, a sword of pure light clutched tightly in his hand. The energy unleashed by Arias was met with an opposing force, a searing wall of power that defied destruction. The shockwave rippled through the forest, a storm of energy clashing with devastating force. In that blinding clash, Issei stood tall, his eyes gleaming with determination, his voice a fierce growl. "I'm gonna make you all pay." The scene before them was nothing short of awe-inspiring. Issei, wielding the power of Drag, had risen to protect Asia. His armor radiated a fierce light, his aura crackling with untamed energy. In the face of this unforeseen defiance, the shock on the faces of Rias, Raynare, and the others was palpable. Akeno was relieved. Asia's tears transformed into ones of relief and hope. Issei's unwavering determination, his sacrifice for her, kindled a fire within her heart. And as Issei stared down his adversaries, his voice resonated with the power of a true dragon, with Drag's strength flowing through him. The tension in the air was suffocating, a palpable fear coursing through the onlookers as they witnessed Issei's dramatic transformation into a force to be reckoned with. Ria's voice trembled, a mixture of terror and realization. "Red Dragon Emperor," she whispered, her composure shattered by the revelation. The gravity of the situation had finally struck her, the true extent of Issei's newfound power and partnership with Drake. As Thomas equipped his own balance breaker, the atmosphere crackled with electricity. The shadow dragon's power surged around him, hellfire dancing like dark tendrils of malevolence. His smirk was one of arrogance and confidence, a challenge extended to the once perceived pervert who now stood before him as an imposing adversary. Well, Thomas jeered. The little pervert has grown far and strong. Let's see if he can match up to me. With blinding speed, Thomas launched himself towards Issei, his fist aimed for the young warrior's face. The impact of the blow was like a clap of thunder, but Issei remained rooted in place, an immovable mountain in the face of the storm. His lips curled into a defiant smile. "My turn," he declared, his voice laced with a newfound confidence. Issei's counterattack was nothing short of catastrophic. His fist met Thomas's armor, the collision resonating like an earthquake, the sheer force of it cracking Thomas's defenses and sending him hurtling to the ground. The impact left an indelible mark, a testament to Issei's unprecedented strength. But what followed was even more remarkable. The landscape shattered at Thomas's impact on the ground, showing the sheer power behind Issei's punch. The cascade of fiery orbs emerged from Issei's chest, each burning with an intense heat. Within those flames, something familiar seemed to stir, a hidden power awakening. The orbs fell to the earth, their impact sending ripples of energy through the ground. However, there was something burning with the flame orbs that looked familiar, as if Issei relinquished a part of him that was forced upon him by someone. As the smoke cleared, Issei stood before Thomas, his armor transformed, his stance exuding an aura of overwhelming might. Thomas, bloodied and broken, stared up at him in disbelief. Issei's voice carried an icy edge as he taunted Thomas. "How does it feel to be looked down upon by a mere lowlife, Phoenix?" The words dripped with venom, the culmination of years of torment and pain. However, the battle was far from one-sided. Amidst the chaos, a new threat loomed. At Ria's command, Kiba lunged forward, sword raised to strike down Asia. But before his blade could find its target, a gust of wind intervened, halting the attack. Issei's grip on the sword was unyielding, his fingers stopping the blade with minimal effort. He regarded Kiba with contempt, a single word leaving his lips like a verdict. "Trash." A mere flick of Issei's fingers sent Kiba sprawling back, crashing through trees with a force that left a trail of destruction. Thomas, his disbelief and dread mounting, muttered his astonishment. "Issei hasn't even boosted a single time, yet he's this powerful. How?" The enigma that was Issei's newfound strength hung heavily in the air, a testament to the evolution he had undergone. Issei's gaze hardened as he turned to Thomas, his voice a tempest of righteous anger. He bared his soul, unleashing the years of suffering he had endured at the hands of this tormentor. "You made my life a living nightmare," Issei seethed. His words cut through the air like a blade. "You bullied me, ruined my childhood, turned everyone in school against me, tricked my own beloved parents into thinking you were a golden child so they would never blame you. You tried to kill my beloved Asia, but no more." Amidst the intensity, Issei's gaze softened as he looked to Akeno. A hint of gentleness touched his voice as he urged her to leave, his concern for her safety evident. "Akeno-san, please, you have to go," he implored. But then, with a playful twist, he added, "Also, you look quite and beautiful today." Akeno's blush was a testament to Issei's ability to still elicit flustered reactions, even in the midst of chaos. Issei's focus shifted back to Thomas, his expression hardening once more. A divine presence seemed to guide his actions as a name materialized in his mind. "Divine Axe Ridda," he intoned, the words flowing from his lips with an air of familiarity. A force seemed to answer his call, shaking the very foundations of Issei's ancestral home. From the mansion of his late grandfather, Esconer, a golden axe trembled, a relic of untold power. With a resonance akin to a force of nature, the axe broke free from its confines, soaring through the air like a comet. It landed with a resounding thud, its impact echoing the magnitude of Issei's newfound strength. Issei approached the divine weapon, his very presence causing the temperature to soar. The sun's rays intensified, turning the world around them into a blazing inferno. The trees ignited, consumed by the unrelenting fire of holy magic. This transformation was unlike anything the devils had ever encountered. Arya's voice was a mix of agony and disbelief. "How is this possible?" she muttered through clenched teeth. "He's a devil. He can't wield holy magic, and that weapon, it's a holy relic." The nightmare unfolded around them, a realm of burning brilliance that spelled doom for their infernal kind. Issei's grip on Thomas tightened, the power coursing through him reaching its zenith. He lifted the divine axe, its presence amplifying his strength a thousandfold. The sky itself seemed to acknowledge his might, the sun blazing with unprecedented brilliance. The sky itself seemed to acknowledge his might, the sun blazing with unprecedented brilliance. In the face of this unstoppable force, Thomas Phoenix lay broken and defeated. Issei's voice, edged with resolve, echoed through the fiery landscape. Die. The axe descended, its trajectory unerring, its power unparalleled. As the divine axe met the ground with a resounding impact, a wave of holy flames erupted, engulfing the surrounding landscape in a torrent of destruction. The smoke and fire danced in the air, a testament to the raw power that Issei wielded. Within the dissipating inferno, Thomas's body was barely recognizable, smoldering and writhing in unimaginable agony. The regenerative power of a phoenix, usually a sign of resilience, now seemed to work against him, keeping him alive through sheer willpower alone. Issei's grip on the divine weapon remained unyielding, his eyes locked on his downed adversary. Victory was within his grasp, but before he could deliver the final blow, a disruptive force halted his advance. A large orb of red energy collided with him, his armor absorbing the impact, but his stance faltering. The smoke cleared, revealing two figures who stood before Issei. The first was a man, regal in appearance and armor, with an expression that bore both authority and concern. Beside him stood a silver-haired maid, an air of quiet strength emanating from her voluptuous form. The man's voice held a mixture of annoyance and curiosity as he demanded to know Issei's intentions. Issei's growled retort revealed his disdain. "Who are you to interrupt me?" He spat. The man's response was calm but firm. "I am Serzich's Lucifer, current leader of the Devils and Rias Gremmary's brother." Issei's smirk was defiant, his words loaded with veiled contempt. "Seems the whore has a brother," he retorted, his frustration evident. Serzich's patience seemed inexhaustible as he questioned Issei's attitude, his concern for his sister's welfare evident in his gaze. "Why do you refer to my beloved sister like that?" He asked Issei to explain himself, to reveal the reason behind his actions. Issei's growl cut through the air, his emotions raw and unchecked. "Ask her yourself," he retorted, his bitterness and frustration palpable. "You don't even know what has happened." But as the exchange continued, Drake's voice echoed in Issei's mind, a warning laden with urgency. "Partner, the balance breaker will not last long, you need to leave the form or else." The dragon's caution was abruptly cut off as Issei's balance breaker suddenly dissipated, leaving him vulnerable and drained. His body, pushed to its limits, finally succumbed to exhaustion, and Issei collapsed, his consciousness slipping into darkness. Akeno's anguished scream pierced the air as Issei fell, her concern and fear for him unabated. She rushed to his side, her voice trembling with worry as she implored him to wake up. Asia, her eyes brimming with tears, joined Akeno, her plea echoing with a mix of desperation and hope. "Issei-san, please wake up." Serzich stepped forward, his frustration and concern intertwining. He rubbed his temples, a hint of regret in his eyes, as he looked at Thomas's broken body. With a determined resolve, he turned to the silver-haired maid, his voice a mixture of authority and exhaustion. "My love, Graphia, take them to the hospital. Get me a detailed account of what transpired here from Akeno." Rias, never one to stay silent, spoke up, attempting to question Akeno's reliability. "She will lie on Issei-san." But Serzich shut down her doubts with a stern glare and a matter-of-fact statement. "Akeno is the least likely to lie. I know you would twist the story to your favor, Rias." The words carried a weight that silenced any further objections, leaving Rias to look away in shame. Graphia bowed respectfully, her response carrying the air of someone accustomed to fulfilling the demands of a leader. "Yes, Serzich's Sama," she acknowledged, her poise unwavering. With a graceful efficiency, she moved forward, her intent clear as she prepared to take charge of the situation. As Serzich rubbed his forehead, an impending headache loomed. The responsibility of leadership weighed heavily upon him, particularly in times of crisis such as these. The aftermath of the battle would necessitate paperwork, council meetings, and the delicate balance of politics that he had become all too familiar with. In the dimly lit hospital room of the underworld's capital city of Lilith, Issei lay unconscious on a bed, his breathing steady, but his mind adrift in a dark, nebulous realm. The room was a somber tableau, Akeno and Asia sleeping fitfully on chairs nearby, the stains of tears on their faces, evidence of the anguish they had been enduring. In the recesses of his own consciousness, Issei's voice echoed, a desperate call into the void, seeking solace or answers. "Hello?" he called out, his voice carrying an air of uncertainty. "Can anyone hear me?" From the depths of his mind, a response emerged, a voice that resonated with power and familiarity. "Indeed, partner," the voice rumbled, like the earth shaking in response to a distant roar. Issei's eyes widened as he stumbled back, the scene around him transforming. Fire erupted behind him, a volcanic surge that heralded the arrival of a colossal figure. Before him stood a dragon, magnificent and towering, its form a testament to ancient might and boundless strength. The dragon's presence commanded respect, its fiery eyes holding a weight of history and power. Issei's voice trembled as recognition dawned upon him. "It's you, the dragon. You're Drag Y Gotch." The dragon's voice rumbled like thunder, a proud declaration of identity. The dragon's voice rumbled like thunder, a proud declaration of identity. "Indeed, partner. I am Drag, the Red Dragon Emperor, and the Heavenly Dragon of Domination." The gravity of the moment seemed to wash over Issei, the reality of his partnership with this legendary creature sinking in. He grinned, a mixture of awe and exhilaration in his expression. "Nice to meet you, partner." Drag's response was equally laced with camaraderie, a sense of shared purpose. "You are quite lucky to be blessed with sunshine," the dragon remarked, a hint of admiration in his tone. Issei's eyebrows knitted in confusion. "Sunshine?" he questioned, his curiosity piqued. Drag's ember-like form shifted, revealing another figure within the flames. The form of a large muscular man, a symbol of a lion etched into his back. Issei's eyes widened as recognition struck him, his voice choked with emotion. "Gramps," he whispered, the name carrying a weight of nostalgia and love. The figure before him stood at an imposing height, his presence both regal and warm. The figure before him stood at an imposing height, his presence both regal and warm. "Hello, Issei," he greeted, his voice like a reassuring embrace. The figure was none other than Esconer, the man who had been the guiding light in Issei's life, an inspiration that had paved the way for his journey. Issei's tears flowed freely as he embraced the form of Esconer, his grip on the older man firm and desperate. "I missed you, Gramps," Issei choked out, his voice a mixture of sorrow and longing. Esconer's arms encircled him in a warm and affectionate hug, his voice gentle and full of reassurance. "Issei, my boy, it has been quite some time," he said, his words carrying the weight of a mentor and a friend. "I have seen everything through your eyes, and I am proud to see you finally stood up against the abuse you suffered at the hands of Ria's Gremory and her pathetic fiancé." Issei nodded, wiping away his tears with determination. The presence of Esconer was a soothing balm to his wounded soul, a beacon of strength in the darkness that had consumed him. But Drake's voice, urgent and concerned, cut through their emotional reunion. "Esconer, you don't have much time left," the dragon warned, his urgency palpable. Esconer's gaze shifted from Issei to Drake, his expression a mixture of resignation and understanding. "Very well," he sighed, addressing both Issei and Drake. "Issei, my boy, I chose you to be the next wielder of sunshine, my magical ability." Issei's eyes widened, his heart pounding with a mixture of awe and responsibility. He was being entrusted with a power that had once belonged to Esconer, a power that symbolized the very essence of strength and radiance. Before Issei could voice his thoughts, Esconer continued, his words carrying the weight of his past experiences. "I was part of a group known as the Seven Deadly Sins," he explained, his tone tinged with nostalgia. "No, not the princes of hell from the Bible. Our group was different." He elaborated, revealing the origins of his extraordinary abilities and the path that had led him to this point. Esconer spoke of Meliodas, the leader of their group, and his own role within the Seven Deadly Sins. He recounted the inception of his powers, the legacy of sunshine, and its origins from the divine. "Sunshine was something I inherited from God himself," Esconer explained, his voice carrying a mixture of reverence and awe. "It was passed first to the strongest archangel ever, Male. However, Male became a demon thanks to my friend Gother. It's a long story, but borderline Male lost Sunshine and became Esterasa, and then years later Sunshine was passed on to me." His voice grew softer as he delved into his personal history. Esconer shared tales of his childhood, of the incredible strength he possessed even before fully understanding the source of his power. He recounted an incident in which he accidentally broke his bully of a brother's arm, an act that led to his being hunted down by his own parents. It was a woman named Rosa who had saved him from the brink of death, setting him on a path that would intersect with Meliodas and Merlin, shaping his destiny. Esconer's eyes held a distant intensity as he continued to weave his tale. He spoke of his journey with the Seven Deadly Sins, of the camaraderie and the battles they fought together. He recounted his ascent to become the strongest among them, earning the title of the strongest holy knight and the admiration of his peers. But the gravity of his impact reached far beyond their group. Esconer's voice grew more somber as he delved into a pivotal moment in history. When Lucifer Morningstar rebelled against God and the entire earth was scorched in the great war between the devils, angels, and fallen, he began, the weight of the world in his words. "I arrived to stop it, destroying many devils and fallen, earning me the nickname Nightmare to the Satans and Devil Slayer. Even Lucifer respected my strength." Esconer's gaze held a mixture of pride and warmth as he looked upon Issei, his voice carrying a weight of purpose. "Issei," he began, his tone imbued with certainty, "I chose you to be the wielder of sunshine because it responded to you." He paused, his eyes meeting Issei's with unwavering sincerity. "Sunshine saw something within you, something that made it believe in your potential. That's why I gave my power to you." A solemn smile touched Esconer's lips as he continued. "I am proud of you," he declared, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "Remember, Issei, use sunshine to protect humanity, to stand against the darkness that threatens it. And never, ever let your pride fall." Issei's resolve burned like an unquenchable flame within him, his determination unwavering. He looked into Esconer's eyes with a fierce intensity. "I will, Gramps," he vowed, his voice carrying the weight of a solemn oath. "I will honor your legacy, and I'll never let you down." Esconer's smile, though tinged with sadness, remained steady. His form began to shimmer, as if his very essence was transitioning to another realm. "Looks like I have to go, my boy," Esconer said, his voice softer now, his demeanor serene. Issei's tears flowed anew as he watched his mentor's form burn like a brilliant sun. "No, not again, Gramps," he whispered, his voice heavy with emotion. He reached out as if trying to grasp onto the fading figure before him, his heart aching at the prospect of losing Esconer once more. Esconer's voice, gentle and soothing, resonated in the air even as his form continued to dissipate. "Don't cry, Issei," he murmured, his presence enveloping Issei like a warm embrace. "I will always be with you, within you, as long as you wield sunshine and fight for what's right." Issei's tears fell freely, his heart heavy, but his spirit uplifted by the connection he shared with Esconer. As the radiant figure faded from his view, the hospital room slowly came back into focus, the echoes of their conversation lingering in his mind. Back with Serzich's. Amidst the grandeur of the underworld's administrative center, Serzich's Lucifer sat behind an imposing desk, surrounded by a sea of paperwork that seemed to have no end. His brows furrowed in frustration as he scribbled his signature on yet another document, his mind filled with curses directed at gods, demons, and everything in between. The weight of his responsibilities as the leader of the devils seemed particularly heavy on this day. The Devil Council's relentless demand for Issei's death was a thorn in his side, an issue that seemed to only worsen with each passing moment. Akeno's account of the relentless bullying Issei had endured from Ria's fiancé, Thomas, only fueled Serzich's anger. His desire to punish those who had tormented Issei clashed with the political intricacies of the situation, leaving him in a state of conflicting emotions. The Devil Council's dismissive attitude toward Akeno, labeling her a disgusting half-fallen, pushed Serzich's to the brink. His voice, usually calm and composed, now rang out in the room with a fiery intensity. "Ignore the words of a half-fallen," he thundered, his frustration palpable. "How dare they dismiss her pain and experiences so callously?" The Phoenix House's demand for revenge further complicated matters, threatening to escalate the already precarious situation. Thomas's charred and broken state was a testament to Issei's strength, but it had also sparked the flames of vengeance within the Phoenix House. Serzich's rubbed his temples wearily, the weight of the decisions he had to make bearing down on him. In the midst of his turmoil, a soothing presence approached. Graphia, his queen and wife, moved gracefully into the room, her maid uniform accentuating her alluring figure. As her hands massaged his tense back, her S brushed against him, eliciting a rare smile from Serzich's. Her voice, dripping with a blend of tenderness and teasing, reached his ears. "Calm down, Serzich's Sama," she purred, her tone laden with promises. "Maybe I'll give you a special treat later to help you relax." A suggestive glint danced in her eyes, and a spark of excitement ignited in Serzich's. He eyed her passionately, his desire momentarily breaking through the facade of his stern demeanor. "I can't wait," he whispered against her lips, his voice heavy with anticipation. But duty called, and with a sigh, he tore himself away from Graphia's embrace, returning to the formidable stack of paperwork. His sleeves were rolled up, his expression one of determination. "First," he declared, his gaze intense as he looked at the mound of documents, "time for my mortal enemy's death. Beg and vile pieces of paper." Graphia sighed. "Why I married you is something I still question to this day." Serzich's diligently doing paperwork looked back grinning. "Ah, you know you love me, Fia-chan. You would never leave me hanging in trouble." Graphia rolled her eyes smirking, saying, "Of course Serzich's Sama, because I doubt you'd find your way out of a paper bag if I wasn't with you." Serzich's whined, saying, "That's mean love." In the Phoenix household. The Phoenix household, a place that had once exuded pride and nobility, now simmered with anger and frustration. The news of Thomas's defeat at the hands of Issei Haidu had sent shockwaves through the family, and the atmosphere within their grand estate had turned tumultuous. Riser Phoenix, known for his arrogance and flamboyance, could barely contain his rage. His voice echoed through the halls as he spoke, a sign of his seething anger. "Riser demands retribution," he exclaimed, his fists clenched at his sides. The fact that a low-class devil like Issei had bested his younger brother was an affront to his pride. Ervil Phoenix, the eldest brother, shared Riser's fury. His face was contorted in a scowl as he ranted about the humiliation their family had suffered. "This is an insult to the Phoenix name," he bellowed, his voice carrying the weight of his indignation. "That wretched Haidu will pay dearly for this." Arya Phoenix, Thomas's older sister, was a woman of poise and grace, but the anger burning in her eyes was undeniable. She paced back and forth in the opulent sitting room, her frustration palpable. "My poor younger brother," she hissed, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and concern. "To see him in the hospital, his body marred by burns. Issei Haidu will pay for this, or I will make sure of it." Arya Phoenix, the beautiful devil of the Phoenix household, was indeed a sight to behold. Her presence radiated an air of elegance and grace that few could match. With her blonde hair elegantly tied into a ponytail and striking ruby-red eyes, she commanded attention wherever she went. Her attire, a resplendent red gown that complemented her fiery eyes, accentuated her beauty and noble bearing. Arya's poise and charm made her one of the most sought-after and admired devils in the underworld, a true jewel in the Phoenix family's crown. Arya's poise and charm made her one of the most sought-after and admired devils in the underworld, a true jewel in the Phoenix family's crown. Despite her undeniable allure, Arya was not just a pretty face. Her determination and intelligence matched her beauty, and she was known for her unwavering loyalty to her family. Now, as she seethed with anger over her younger brother's injuries, that determination burned even brighter. Within the opulent halls of the Phoenix household, tensions ran high as Lord and Lady Phoenix grappled with their emotions in the wake of Thomas's severe injuries. Lady Phoenix's voice trembled with a combination of grief and anger as she made her demands clear. "Issei Haidu must be punished severely," she insisted, her words laced with venom. "He should be declared a stray, and we should hunt him down like the dog he is." Lord Phoenix, a figure of authority and wisdom, sighed deeply, his gaze heavy with the weight of responsibility. He understood the desire for vengeance that burned within his family, but he also knew the consequences of defying the orders of Serzich's Lucifer, the leader of their race. "As much as I want to avenge Thomas my love," he admitted, his voice weary, "Serzich's Sama has explicitly ordered us not to lay a finger on Issei Haidu." Arya Phoenix, their fiery and headstrong daughter, could not contain her rage any longer. Her eyes blazed with fury as she declared her intent. "I will not stand for this," she exclaimed, her voice echoing through the halls. In an instant, she conjured a magic circle, her determination driving her to take matters into her own hands. With a flash of energy, she disappeared, leaving her family in shock. Lord Phoenix cursed under his breath, his frustration evident. He knew that Arya's actions could have dire consequences, especially given their leader's strict orders. He turned to his other son, Ruvel, his expression urgent. "Ruvel, go and call Serzich's immediately," he ordered, the urgency in his voice clear. Ruvel nodded, his own desire for vengeance tempered by the need to prevent his sister from getting into even more trouble. Back in the hospital. As Issei gradually awoke from his minor coma, the hospital room came into focus, and he found himself surrounded by the sleeping forms of Akeno and Asia. Akeno, in particular, had chosen to stay close, her head resting gently on his lap. Issei's heart swelled with warmth as he caressed her head, his smile tender. "Wake up, Akeno-san," he whispered, his voice soft and affectionate. Akeno jolted awake with a start, her eyes widening in relief as she saw Issei's awake and smiling face. "Issei," she exclaimed, her voice filled with emotion. Her outburst roused Asia from her slumber, and she, too, rushed to Issei's side, tears streaming down her face as she cried out, "Issei-san." Both girls embraced Issei tightly, their relief and joy palpable. Issei held them close, his voice soothing and reassuring. "It's alright," he said gently, his hand stroking their backs. "I'm okay now." Akeno's eyes were filled with a mix of anger and relief. "I hate you," she muttered, her voice trembling. "You made us so worried. I thought I might lose you forever." Issei's smile remained, but it held a hint of sheepishness. "I'm sorry," he said softly, his gaze locked with Akeno's. "I didn't mean to make you worry like that." Akeno couldn't stay mad for long. With a sigh, she leaned in and planted on Issei's cheek, causing a blush to spread across his face. "Just promise me," she whispered, her lips brushing against his skin, "never to do this to me again." Issei took Akeno's hand, his expression sincere. "I promise," he vowed, his eyes locked on hers. "I won't put you through this again." Meanwhile, Asia sat beside them, her body trembling, her tears flowing freely. She stammered through her apologies, blaming herself for the ordeal. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "I'm the reason Akeno-san and Issei-san got in deep trouble, and because of me, Issei-san went into a coma." Issei's heart ached for Asia, and he pulled her into a comforting hug. "Don't say that," he said firmly, his voice filled with determination. "I would do it all over again if it meant saving you, Asia. You're my closest friend." Asia blushed, her tears mixing with a newfound sense of gratitude. Akeno watched with an amused glint in her eye, teasing Issei. "Ra a new rival, Issei." She purred, her tone playful. Asia's blush deepened, and Issei was utterly perplexed by Akeno's comment. But before they could delve into the complexities of Akeno's words, a magic circle suddenly illuminated the room, and a figure emerged in a blaze of fiery anger. It was Arya Phoenix, her eyes literally ablaze with fury, her presence like a raging inferno. Arya Phoenix stormed into the hospital room, her voice seething with rage as she bellowed, "Issei Haidu." Her fiery eyes bore into Issei, and she vowed that he would pay for daring to stand up to the Phoenix house. Issei, still recovering from his ordeal, was thoroughly confused by the sudden intrusion. He blinked, a puzzled expression on his face. "Wait, who even are you?" he asked, his voice tinged with bewilderment. Arya's response was laced with venom as she introduced herself. "I am Arya Phoenix," she declared, her voice dripping with hostility. "And I am the older sister of Thomas Phoenix." The mention of Thomas's name sent a shiver of anger coursing through Issei's body. His aura suddenly flared, filling the room with a suffocating intensity. Arya took an involuntary step back, startled by the abrupt change in Issei's demeanor. Issei's voice was low and dangerous as he snarled, "So, you're that Er's sister? How is he? Does he remember what happened?" Arya was taken aback by Issei's aggressive response, but her own anger burned just as fiercely. She couldn't allow Issei's insults to go unanswered. "Thomas is recovering," she replied icily, her gaze locked with his. "And when he does, he will remember every moment of his defeat at your hands." Issei's eyes narrowed, and he didn't hold back his disdain. "Defeat? That guy was nothing more than a bully, and I put him in his place. If he's smart, he'll stay down." Arya's fury intensified as she retorted, "You underestimate my brother. Thomas Phoenix is a proud member of our noble house, and he will have his vengeance." Issei's contempt for Thomas burned like a fiery inferno, and he didn't hold back in his verbal assault. His eyes bore into Arya, unyielding and filled with disdain. "Thomas Phoenix," Issei spat out the name with a venomous sneer, "is nothing more than a spoiled brat who thinks he can get away with anything because of his noble blood. He's weak, arrogant, and a bully. He doesn't deserve an ounce of sympathy." Arya's anger flared in response to Issei's words, but he pressed on, his voice dripping with scorn. "He's a disgrace to the Phoenix name," he continued, his words cutting like a knife. "And I showed him just how fragile his so-called strength truly was." Arya's anger was not to be underestimated, and she shot back with venom in her voice. "How dare you insult my brother?" she hissed, her fists clenched at her sides. "Thomas may have been defeated, but he's a Phoenix, unlike a low-class devil like you." Issei's eyes blazed with defiance as he stood up, his injuries temporarily forgotten in the heat of the confrontation. "Low-class devil or not," he retorted, his voice cold, "your brother got exactly what he deserved. He bullied me, tormented me, and tried to kill someone I care about. I won't shed a tear for him." Arya's rage intensified as she took a step forward, the tension in the room escalating. "You will pay for your insolence," she declared, her voice trembling with anger. As Arya's rage reached its peak, she unleashed a wave of scorching flames, directed straight at Issei. Issei, ready to defend himself with the power of the boosted gear, was about to spring into action when, in a flash, the atmosphere in the room changed dramatically. Serzich's Lucifer, the Mayuan leader of the devils, appeared in the room with an aura of simmering anger. His eyes blazed with an intensity that sent shivers down Arya's spine. He stood between Arya's fiery attack and Issei, his presence commanding attention. With a wave of his hand and a stern expression, Serzich's dissipated Arya's flames as if they were mere embers, leaving her attack powerless and extinguished. The room returned to a tense silence as Arya realized the gravity of the situation. She had dared to disobey the orders of the Mayu himself. Arya's fear was palpable, and she quivered in Serzich's presence, her anger subsiding in the face of his overwhelming authority. Serzich's had arrived in the nick of time, preventing a potential catastrophe and putting Arya in her place with his stern gaze. Moments later the Phoenix family had arrived. The arrival of Lord Phoenix and the rest of the Phoenix family added a new layer of tension to the room as they entered to find a scene of simmering anger and defiance. Serzich's Lucifer, the Mayu himself, and Lord Phoenix stood side by side, their expressions a mixture of fury and disappointment. Lord Phoenix, his usually calm demeanor shattered, wasted no time in delivering a harsh reprimand. His voice was laced with anger as he addressed his daughter. "Arya Phoenix," he began, his tone seething, "you have defied not only our family's honor, but the direct orders of the Mayu himself. Your actions are inexcusable." Arya, now aware of the gravity of her actions, tried to defend herself, her voice quivering with anxiety. "But father," she protested, "Issei Haidu he." Serzich's cut her off with a cold glare, his eyes like twin flames of judgment. "There is no excuse for your recklessness, Arya," he said, his voice like ice. "You have put our family's reputation at risk and endangered our standing among the devils." Ruvel, another of Arya's brothers, chimed in with a voice filled with exasperation. "You've allowed your emotions to cloud your judgment," he scolded. "This is not how a member of the Phoenix family should conduct themselves. Little sister, had Issei Haidu been hurt, Serzich's Sama would have had you banished. Be grateful I saved your ass." Arya's protests grew weaker as she realized the severity of her actions and the unified front against her. She bowed her head, her voice subdued. I only wanted to avenge Thomas, she admitted, her regret evident. Lord Phoenix, his anger still simmering, shook his head in disappointment. Arya, vengeance without discretion only leads to chaos, he admonished. We must follow the Mayu's orders and uphold the honor of our family through lawful means. As the tension in the room continued to mount, Riser Phoenix, known for his narcissism, unexpectedly stepped forward to defend his sister, Arya. His voice dripped with disdain as he addressed Issei. Riser cannot abide the disrespect shown to his dear sister, he declared pompously, his tone condescending. It is clear that this low-class devil has sullied the honor of the Phoenix family with his actions. Lord Phoenix, who had been reprimanding Arya moments ago, was appalled by Riser's behavior. He had expected his eldest son to support the family's stance, but Riser's defense of Arya, combined with his contemptuous remarks about Issei, caught him off guard. Riser, this is not the time for your theatrics, Lord Phoenix admonished, his voice stern. We must address the situation at hand and ensure that our family's honor is upheld. Riser, undeterred by his father's words, continued to voice his displeasure with Issei. Issei Haidu is a stain on the name of the Phoenix family, he proclaimed arrogantly. He is nothing more than a lowly pervert, and Riser Phoenix will not allow him to tarnish our reputation any further. Lord Phoenix's disappointment deepened as he witnessed his son's unwavering support for Arya and his disdain for Issei. He understood the importance of family loyalty, but Riser's behavior was not only disrespectful, but also detrimental to the unity of their house. Issei, no longer willing to tolerate Riser's insults and the disdainful comments towards him and the Phoenix family, retorted with a cold, cutting voice. His green eyes narrowed to slits as he unleashed his own barrage of insults, directed squarely at the Phoenix house. Riser Phoenix, Issei began, his tone icy, you talk about honor and reputation, but what honor is there in bullying and tormenting someone weaker than you? Your family's so-called prestige means nothing when it's built on the suffering of others. Lord Phoenix, though still displeased with Riser's behavior, listened silently as Issei continued to speak. Issei's words cut deep, and he had clearly reached the limits of his patience. You, Issei pointed at Riser, his voice filled with contempt, are nothing more than a pompous, self-centered brat who believes he's entitled to everything. Your arrogance is insufferable, and it's no wonder you're despised by many. Issei didn't stop there. He turned his attention to the Phoenix family as a whole, his words biting and unapologetic. As for the Phoenix family, he continued, you may have noble blood, but that doesn't make you superior. True strength and honor are earned through actions, not inherited titles. Lady Phoenix, incensed by Issei's insults and unyielding in her loyalty to her family, couldn't contain her rage any longer. Her face flushed with anger, and her voice trembled with fury as she directed her ire at Issei. How dare you low-class filth. She spat out, her words a venomous hiss. You have no right to insult my family and children in such a manner. Lord Phoenix, though he understood the severity of the situation, attempted to intervene and calm his wife. My dear, please, he implored, his voice soothing, let us not escalate this further. We must find a resolution. However, Lady Phoenix's anger raged unabated and she ignored her husband's pleas. Resolution. She scoffed, her eyes locked onto Issei with unrelenting intensity. This wretched devil dares to disrespect us, and you speak of resolution. He must pay for his insolence. Issei, equally unyielding, didn't back down. I'll pay for nothing, he retorted, his voice unwavering. I've had enough of your family's arrogance and mistreatment. You can't hide behind your noble blood forever. The room, engulfed in a storm of emotions and heated arguments, was suddenly brought to an abrupt and tense silence as Serzich's Lucifer, the Mayu himself, intervened with a display of his overwhelming power. His presence was undeniable, and the pressure in the room was palpable. Enough. Serzich's thundered, his voice commanding and authoritative, causing everyone present to cease their words and actions instantly. His eyes bore into each individual, demanding their attention. With an air of solemnity, Serzich's turned his attention towards Issei. He bowed his head deeply, a gesture of sincerity and remorse, and spoke with a voice that carried the weight of his authority. Issei Haidu, he began, I offer you my sincerest apologies for the mistreatment you endured at the hands of the Phoenix family and my sister, Ria's Gremory. Issei, taken aback by Serzich's unexpected apology, remained silent as he listened intently. Serzich's continued, his voice tinged with regret, I allowed my sister to become spoiled and did not intervene when she mistreated you. I also failed to address the issue of Thomas Phoenix's bullying, and for that, I am deeply sorry. The room was filled with a heavy atmosphere as Serzich's took full responsibility for the actions of his family and himself. It was a rare and profound moment of humility from the Mayu, a stark departure from his usual pompous demeanor. I promise you, Serzich's continued, that I will ensure justice is served and the mistreatment you endured will not go unpunished. I will also work to rectify the behavior of my family members. Issei, overwhelmed by the unexpected turn of events and Serzich's heartfelt apology, began to panic. "Please," he stammered, "don't apologize for Ria's mistakes. It's not your fault." Issei's panicked plea for Serzich's not to apologize was met with a gentle but determined response from the Mau. "Issei," Serzich said with sincerity, "I understand your reluctance, but it is important to acknowledge the mistakes made. Please, allow me to make amends." Issei, though still feeling guilty about the situation, nodded reluctantly, realizing that Serzich was genuinely trying to right the wrongs. Lord Phoenix, however, was puzzled by Serzich's mention of Thomas bullying Issei and sought clarification. "What do you mean by Thomas bullying Issei?" he inquired, a sense of concern and disbelief in his voice. Serzich sighed regretfully before explaining, "Thomas Phoenix's mistreatment of Issei extends beyond recent events. Even during their childhood and their time at Kuo Academy, Thomas was known to bully and mistreat Issei." Akeno, who had been a witness to some of these events, nodded in confirmation. "It's true," she said softly. "I saw Thomas bullying and even physically assaulting Issei at Kuo Academy. Issei was subjected to a lot of unjust treatment." Lord Phoenix, horrified by the revelation of his son's behavior, hung his head in shame. "I had no knowledge of this," he admitted, his voice heavy with remorse. "I apologize, Issei, for my son's actions. This is inexcusable." As Ajuka Beelzebub, the second strongest devil and the current Mau Beelzebub, entered the room, a sense of gravity filled the air. He was known for his exceptional intelligence and had played a significant role in creating the evil P system for the devil nobility. Ajuka was also a close friend of Serzich's, and his presence in this situation carried significant weight. With his distinctive green hair and a handsome face, Ajuka's arrival drew the attention of everyone in the room. His grave expression further heightened the tension as he approached Serzich's, carrying the test results that had been requested from Issei's blood samples. Serzich's, though surprised by Ajuka's somber demeanor, greeted his friend with a nod. "Ajuka, you're here. What have you found?" Ajuka's voice was measured as he replied, "I've conducted a thorough analysis of Issei Haidu's blood samples, and the results are concerning, Serzich's." Ajuka Beelzebub's hand pressed against Issei's chest, his expression a mix of concern and confirmation. He let out a low, thoughtful groan before turning to Serzich's with a decisive look in his eyes. "Serzich's," Ajuka said, "my suspicions were correct. You must inform the Devil Council that they cannot continue to pursue punishment for Issei Haidu." The weight of Ajuka's words hung heavily in the room. The Devil Council's relentless pursuit of retribution against Issei had caused a great deal of turmoil and strife. Ajuka's revelation carried a significant implication, one that would challenge the council's authority. Serzich, intrigued and perplexed, questioned, "Why, Ajuka? What has changed?" Ajuka allowed a small, satisfied smirk to briefly touch his lips before explaining. "Issei Haidu is no longer a devil. He no longer possesses the evil pieces in his body. He has become a human." Serzich, stunned by this revelation, couldn't contain his shock. "What?" he exclaimed, his voice echoing through the room. The implications of Issei's transformation from devil to human were profound, and it left everyone in the room in a state of disbelief. Serzich's disbelief hung in the air like a heavy fog as he grappled with the revelation that Issei Haidu had transformed from a devil into a human. His mind raced, trying to comprehend the implications of such a transformation. "How is that even possible?" Serzich finally managed to utter, his voice tinged with shock. Ajuka, the ever-calculating and intelligent Mau Beelzebub, maintained his grave demeanor. He knew the answer to Serzich's question was not a simple one. "I have a rough estimate of how it happened," he admitted, his voice measured. "Issei," Ajuka began, his voice low and reassuring, "I need to ask you a crucial question. Do you possess holy magic?" Issei, caught off guard by the question, hesitated. The inheritance of holy magic from his formidable grandfather, Esconer, was a closely guarded secret. He glanced at the faces of those in the room, searching for a sign of trust. Ajuka, understanding the weight of Issei's dilemma, offered a promise of utmost discretion. "Issei," he said, his tone sincere, "you have my word that whatever you reveal in this room will not leave its confines." Issei, caught in the center of this revelation, couldn't help but feel a mix of trepidation and curiosity. Ajuka's promise of confidentiality weighed on his mind, and he finally spoke, albeit cautiously, "Yes, I do possess holy magic, and I inherited it from my grandfather, Esconer." As soon as those words left Issei's lips, the atmosphere in the room shifted drastically. The older devils present, including Serzich, Ajuka, Lord Phoenix and Lady Phoenix, all shared a collective moment of PTSD that had haunted them from the darkest pages of history, the time when Esconer, the lion's sin of pride, had terrorized their ranks during the Great War. Their faces contorted with expressions of pure fear, and their voices quivered as they recounted the memories that had left an indelible mark on their souls. Serzich, who was known for his composure, could hardly conceal his apprehension. Esconer, he muttered, his voice shaky, I thought I'd never hear that name again. Ajuka, the Maya Beelzebub, couldn't help but recall the sheer power and destruction that Esconer had unleashed. He was a force of nature, he admitted with a shiver. His presence alone sent shivers down our spines. Lord Phoenix, normally dignified and composed, had a haunted look in his eyes as he remembered the devastation wrought by Esconer. We were helpless against him, he confessed. His power was beyond anything we had ever faced. Lady Phoenix, her fiery spirit momentarily extinguished by the memories, whispered in dread, Esconer was a nightmare, a force that could not be tamed. The room had transformed into a sanctuary of shared trauma, where the memories of Esconer's might and the terror he had instilled in even the most powerful devils were revisited. Issei, still grappling with the revelation of his transformation, couldn't help but feel the weight of his grandfather's legacy and the consequences it had brought upon him. Ajuka, ever the strategist, broke the silence with a solemn declaration. Issei, he said, his voice firm, it appears that your inheritance of holy magic from Esconer is the reason for your transformation into a human. Holy magic and devil physiology are incompatible, and it seems your body has chosen the path of humanity. The question hung in the air, heavy and laden with curiosity. Serzich's, his eyes still bearing traces of fear and awe from the mention of Esconer, finally summoned the courage to ask, Issei, how is it that you are Esconer's grandson? As far as we knew, Esconer did not have any children. Issei, sitting on the hospital bed, prepared to share the story of his connection to the legendary Esconer. It was a tale that had been etched into his heart since childhood. He took a deep breath and began to recount the memories of that fateful day. It was a rainy day, Issei began, his voice carrying the weight of nostalgia. I was just a young child, lost and alone. I wandered the streets, drenched and shivering, with no one to turn to. The room fell into a contemplative silence as Issei's words painted a vivid picture of his past. He continued, I don't remember much from that day, but I do remember finding shelter in a grand mansion. It was Grandpa Esconer's mansion. Serzich's and the Phoenix family listened intently, their curiosity growing with each word. Issei's voice quivered with emotion as he recalled, Grandpa Esconer found me, took me in, and cared for me like his own. For that one day, I felt safe and loved. A sense of warmth enveloped Issei as he reminisced about that fleeting moment of comfort amid the storm. He continued, a few hours later, my mother arrived to pick me up. Gramps explained that I had gotten lost in the rain and she was frantic with worry. She was glad to see me safe. Issei's mother had rescued him from the mansion that day, unknowingly taking him away from the man who had shown him kindness in his darkest hour. Ever since then, Issei continued, his voice growing heavier with emotion, Grandpa Esconer became like family to me. He was my adoptive grandfather, the one who cared for me when I had no one else. The room was filled with a solemn silence as Issei's words hung in the air. It was a story of a chance encounter, a single day that had left an indelible mark on his life. Issei's voice trembled as he recalled the final heartbreaking memory he had of Esconer. The last thing I remember of him is crying at his side, knowing that he was gone. He had protected me until the end. Tears welled up in Issei's eyes as he relived that painful moment. The room remained still, each person present touched by the depth of his connection to Esconer. Serzich's, his earlier fear and awe replaced by understanding, nodded in acknowledgement. Thank you for sharing your story, Issei. Esconer's legacy lives on through you. Riser Phoenix, known for his arrogance and disdain for others, couldn't resist the urge to mock even in this solemn moment. He spoke in his trademark third person, his tone dripping with mockery. Riser wonders, he began, a smug grin on his face, if this Esconer fellow was truly as strong as they say. After all, if he perished so easily, he mustn't have been all that impressive. Issei, still emotionally raw from sharing his connection to Esconer, couldn't help but feel his anger rise at Riser's disrespectful words. His voice quivered with a mix of grief and frustration as he responded, you know nothing about Grandpa Esconer. He was a true warrior, and his strength was beyond anything you can imagine. Riser, undeterred by Issei's retort, continued to mock, oh, Riser is sure he was a real powerhouse. But if he's gone, then what's the point of all that strength? Issei's fists clenched in anger as he shot back, strength isn't just about how long you live. It's about what you do with the time you have. Grandpa Esconer used his strength to protect others and make a difference in this world. That's more than I can say for some. Serzich's, usually a picture of composure, couldn't hide his irritation at Riser's disrespectful attitude. His voice took on a stern tone as he addressed the arrogant devil. Riser Phoenix, show some respect for the deceased. Esconer was a legendary figure, and his strength was renowned throughout the realms. Riser, undeterred, replied with a scoff, respect is earned, not given. And from what Riser hears, this Esconer fellow didn't earn much. Lord Phoenix, who had been silent for most of the discussion, finally spoke up. His voice carried a weight of authority as he said, Riser, enough. Your disrespect is unwarranted. Regardless of your personal opinions, we are here to honor Issei's connection to Esconer, not to belittle it. Riser's smirk wavered slightly under the weight of his family's disapproval, but he couldn't resist one final jab. Well, Riser supposes that even legends have their limits. Riser, never one to let an opportunity to taunt slip away, decided to take it a step further. He unleashed a cruel and mocking tirade against Esconer, pushing the boundaries of decency. Riser wonders, he said with a malicious grin, if this Esconer fellow's strength was as mighty as they say, why did he succumb to death so easily? Perhaps he was just a feeble old man pretending to be a legend. Issei's reaction was unlike anything anyone in the room had seen before. His eyes, once filled with a fiery determination, turned cold and lifeless. He went completely silent, his expression devoid of emotion. It was a chilling transformation that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. Serzich's, Lord Phoenix, and even Arya Phoenix were taken aback by the sudden change in Issei. They had expected him to react with anger or defiance, but this eerie silence was unsettling. Riser, reveling in the discomfort he had caused, continued his cruel taunts. Riser supposes even legends can crumble when faced with the inevitability of death. It's rather pathetic, really. Issei's silence persisted, his gaze fixed on a distant point as if he had retreated into some inner void. The room grew heavy with tension, and no one dared to speak. It was as if something had broken inside Issei, leaving behind only a hollow shell. Akeno and Asia exchanged worried glances, unable to comprehend the abrupt change in Issei's demeanor. They had never seen him like this before, and it frightened them. Riser, realizing that he had gone too far, tried to save face with a smug grin. Well, it seems Riser's words have left quite an impact. Perhaps Issei should learn not to take things so seriously. But even as Riser attempted to brush off his cruel words, the atmosphere in the room remained tense and uncomfortable. Issei's silence spoke volumes, and it was a stark reminder that there were lines that should never be crossed, especially when it came to matters of the heart and respect for the departed. Issei's transformation into a cold and emotionless state didn't go unnoticed. As Sunshine's holy energy bathed him, his aura became overwhelming, causing many devils to instinctively back away. Serzich's, quick to shield Akeno and Asia from the intensity of the power radiating from Issei, watched in astonishment and growing concern. Riser, on the other hand, found himself trapped in a nightmare of his own making. Issei's voice, now devoid of any warmth or humanity, cut through the air like a chilling wind. "You dare," Issei spoke in that cold and emotionless tone, his words dripping with menace, "mock the memory of Esconer, a warrior whose strength you can't even fathom. You have no right." Riser's smugness from earlier had evaporated into sheer terror. He had crossed a line he couldn't comprehend, and Issei's transformation into something beyond human comprehension shook him to his core. Issei continued, each word carrying the weight of his anger and the power of sunshine. "You, Riser Phoenix, are nothing compared to the legacy of Esconer. Your arrogance blinds you to the reality of true strength." As Issei spoke, beams of intense holy energy emanated from him, forming a radiant and blinding aura. His eyes, once lifeless, now burned with an otherworldly fire that seemed to pierce through Riser's very soul. Riser stammered, his bravado shattered, I didn't mean. But Issei didn't let him finish. He raised his hand, and a surge of holy energy gathered around it, forming a scorching sphere of power. "Enough," Issei declared, his voice resonating with authority. And with a swift motion, he unleashed the sphere towards Riser, who barely had time to react. The blast struck with incredible force, sending Riser hurtling across the room, crashing into a wall with a deafening impact. The room fell into an eerie silence once more, broken only by the sound of Riser's pained groans as he struggled to get back on his feet. Issei's cold and emotionless facade slowly faded, replaced by a mix of exhaustion and lingering anger. The aftermath of Issei's display of power left the room heavy with tension and unease. Riser, still recovering from the brutal impact of Issei's attack, was a far cry from the arrogant devil he had been just moments ago. He lay sprawled on the floor, his once immaculate appearance now marred and disheveled. Serzich's, his expression a mix of relief and concern, lowered his protective barrier. He approached Issei with a deep sense of regret and guilt in his eyes. He had allowed this situation to escalate, and it had taken a terrifying turn. "Issei," Serzich's began, his voice filled with remorse, "I apologize once again for the actions of my family and the way you were treated." Issei, despite the weariness in his eyes, managed to offer a sad smile. "Serzich's Sama, you don't need to apologize anymore. What's done is done." Akeno and Asia, who had been watching the entire ordeal with a mixture of fear and concern, now joined Issei. Akeno spoke softly, her voice filled with empathy, "Issei-kun, are you okay?" Issei nodded, his smile becoming slightly warmer. "I'm fine, Akeno-san. Just a bit drained." Asia, tears still glistening in her eyes, added, "We were so worried about you." Issei reached out and gently wiped away Asia's tears. "I'm here now, Asia." And I promise, I won't let anyone hurt you or Akeno-san ever again. Akeno's heart skipped a beat at Issei's words. She had seen a different side of him today, a side filled with power and determination, but also vulnerability. She couldn't help but admire his strength, both physical and emotional. Serzich, though relieved that the situation had been defused, couldn't shake off the guilt that gnawed at him. He had been a negligent older brother to Rias, but he was determined to make amends. Issei-kun, Serzich said earnestly, I promise you that I will do everything in my power to ensure your safety from now on. No one will harm you or your friends again. Issei appreciated the sincerity in Serzich's words. He had come to understand that not all devils were like Rias or her family. There were those who genuinely cared, like Akeno, Asia, and apparently, Serzich himself. Thank you, Serzich-sama, Issei replied with a nod. I believe you, and I appreciate your support. Arya Phoenix, who had been watching the exchange in silence, couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt. Her reckless actions had triggered this entire chain of events, and she had endangered not only herself but her family's standing as well. Lord Phoenix, still trying to comprehend the revelations about Issei's heritage and the implications it had for the devil community, sighed deeply. We have much to discuss and consider, he admitted, but for now, let us focus on ensuring Thomas's recovery and addressing the issues within our family. Riser, who had finally managed to sit up, looked disheveled and humbled. He avoided eye contact with Issei, a stark contrast to his earlier arrogance. The events of the day had left an indelible mark on him. Issei's gaze, though weary, was compassionate as he looked at Riser. I hope you've learned a valuable lesson today, Riser Phoenix. Strength isn't just about power. It's about how you treat others. Riser, chastened, nodded silently. He had been forced to confront the consequences of his actions, and it was not pretty at all. Issei's voice carried a mix of vulnerability and sincerity as he spoke. The room had fallen into a contemplative silence, and all eyes were on him, including Riser's, who listened with newfound humility. You know, Issei began, his gaze distant as he reminisced, I thought I would never be appreciated by anyone else other than my mom and dad. I was just a stupid young pervert with an obsession for boobs, even when I was a child. Most people dismissed me as a perverted nuisance, but my parents, they didn't care about that. To them, I was their miracle, their child. Akeno and Asia listened intently, their hearts going out to Issei as he shared a part of his past that he had rarely spoken about. Issei continued, his voice wavering slightly with emotion, but Grampsy was different. Instead of berating me like others, he tried to understand why I acted the way I did. He never judged me for being who I was, and he gave me proper guidance on how to treat women with respect. Serzich nodded in understanding. He could sense the deep connection Issei had with his grandfather, Esconer, and how the old man had played a pivotal role in shaping Issei's character. It sounds like your grandfather was a remarkable person, Serzich commented, his tone filled with empathy. Issei's eyes softened, and a small smile graced his lips. Yeah, he was. He taught me about strength, not just the physical kind, but the strength of character and kindness. He was the one who made me want to be a better person, someone who could protect and care for those I hold dear. Thomas, he bullied me, Issei began, his voice cracking. He made fun of me, labeled me as a villain, and turned everyone against me just because I was a pervert. Akeno and Asia, who had been listening attentively, couldn't hold back their tears any longer. Akeno's eyes glistened with sorrow, and Asia's tears flowed freely as they embraced Issei, their hearts breaking for the young man who had suffered in silence for so long. Issei continued, his voice filled with anguish, he made it his mission to humiliate me, to make me feel worthless. We were both kids, and he treated me like I deserved to be treated that way. I didn't have anyone to stand up for me, and I didn't understand why I was being punished for being who I was. Issei's words painted a vivid picture of his childhood torment. He described in painful detail how Thomas had systematically targeted him, how he had spread rumors and twisted truths to turn everyone against him. The room grew tense as Issei recounted the relentless bullying he had endured. Tears welled up in Akeno's and Asia's eyes as they listened to Issei's heartbreaking confession. Akeno reached out and gently held Issei's hand, offering silent support. Asia leaned closer, her presence a comforting presence beside him. Issei's voice cracked as he continued, his pain and frustration evident. Just because I'm a pervert, does that mean I deserve to die without the presence of those who love me? Is that what I am, just a pervert who should be cast aside? Akeno and Asia couldn't contain their tears any longer. They embraced Issei tightly, their hearts breaking for the suffering he had endured. Their soft cries filled the room, a lament for the injustice he had faced. Serzich, Lord Phoenix, and even Riser looked on with remorse and sympathy. They had been blind to the suffering Issei had endured, and the weight of their ignorance weighed heavily on them. Riser, in particular, was struck by the realization of how his own actions had contributed to Issei's pain. He felt a profound sense of guilt and shame for having played a part in the bullying that had scarred Issei's childhood. Serzich's, his expression weighed down by shame and regret, couldn't tear his eyes away from Issei's tear-streaked face. Issei's emotional outpouring had revealed a painful truth he had been blind to for far too long. Iskun, Serzich's began, his voice heavy with remorse, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have known what was happening to you, and I should have stopped it. Issei turned to look at Serzich's, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. Serzich's Sama, you don't have to blame yourself. It wasn't your fault. But Serzich's couldn't shake off the guilt that gnawed at him. As the older brother of Rias and leader of the Devils, it had been his responsibility to ensure the well-being of his race. He had failed Issei in that regard. Iskun, Serzich's continued, his voice trembling with sincerity, I promise you, from this day forward, I will do everything in my power to make amends for my negligence. You will never have to suffer like that again. Issei offered a small, appreciative smile. Thank you, Serzich's Sama. Your support means a lot to me. The room remained in a solemn silence, the weight of the past and the hope for a better future hanging in the air. Issei's heartfelt confession had brought to light the pain he had endured, but it had also opened the door to healing and reconciliation. Akeno and Asia, still holding on to Issei, exchanged glances, their tears now mingling with a sense of relief. Issei's vulnerability had drawn them closer together and they were determined to stand by his side, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Lady Phoenix, her eyes glistening with tears, took a step forward, her voice trembling as she addressed Issei. I am truly sorry for my words earlier. I should never have berated you like that. I should have been a stricter mother to Thomas so he wouldn't have grown up to become the person he is now. Issei looked at Lady Phoenix, seeing the genuine remorse in her eyes. He couldn't bear to see a mother cry, even if she had been harsh towards him earlier. He wiped away his own tears and said softly, it's alright, Lady Phoenix. I understand that you're going through a difficult time. But Lady Phoenix was determined to make amends. She stepped closer to Issei, her voice filled with sincerity as she continued, no, Issei-kun, it's not alright. I want to make it right. Please, ask anything of the Phoenix family and we will do our best to grant your request. It's the least we can do to make up for our mistakes. Issei was taken aback by her offer. He hadn't expected this level of remorse and willingness to make amends. He looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and understanding. Lady Phoenix, you don't have to do this. I don't hold any grudges against your family. But Lady Phoenix insisted, her voice unwavering. Please, Issei-kun, consider it a mother's plea for forgiveness. We want to make things right, not just for Thomas's sake, but for our own as well. We want to change, to be better. Issei realized that this was an opportunity not just for himself, but for the Phoenix family as well. He nodded, his own voice filled with sincerity. Alright, Lady Phoenix, if you insist. There is something I would like to request. Lady Phoenix's eyes lit up with hope and she nodded eagerly. Anything, Issei-kun. Thank you, Lady Phoenix, Issei began, his voice steady. What I request is for a change in how your family treats others, especially those who are considered lower in status. No one should ever go through what I experienced, and I hope that the Phoenix family can play a role in making sure that such injustices don't happen to anyone else. Lady Phoenix nodded, her expression determined. I promise you, Issei-kun, we will do everything in our power to bring about that change. We will teach our children to be kind, compassionate, and fair to all, regardless of their status or background. Issei smiled, touched by her sincerity. That's all I ask for, Lady Phoenix. To create a world where everyone is treated with respect and fairness. Lord Phoenix, having witnessed the emotional exchange between Issei and his family, felt a deep desire to do more to make amends. He cleared his throat, drawing the attention of everyone in the room, and said, there is one more thing I wish to offer, Issei Haidu. Issei looked at Lord Phoenix, curious about what else the Phoenix family could offer. Lord Phoenix continued, I would like to propose that Arya be offered to you in marriage. Lord Phoenix's unexpected offer hung in the air and the room fell silent. Arya's face turned as red as a ripe tomato and she couldn't believe what she had just heard. She spluttered, Father. Lord Phoenix, stern and resolute, raised a hand to silence his daughter. Arya, you will quiet down. This is not a matter for you to protest. It is a form of reparation for your impulsive actions. Issei was taken aback by this proposition. Marrying someone he barely knew, especially as a form of punishment, was a concept he had never even considered. He glanced at Lady Phoenix, whose expression was a mix of hope and earnestness. She was pleading for him to accept this unorthodox offer. Lady Phoenix spoke, her voice filled with sincerity, Issei, please consider this. Arya may be impulsive and headstrong, but she genuinely wants to make amends for her actions. She recognizes the pain you've suffered because of our family, and this is her way of trying to right those wrongs. Issei was torn. Arya's face was still flushed with embarrassment, but there was something in her eyes, a hint of regret and longing that caught his attention. He had always been a person willing to give others a chance to believe in their capacity to change. He sighed and spoke, addressing Lord and Lady Phoenix, I appreciate your intentions, but marriage is a serious commitment. It shouldn't be used as a form of punishment. However, if Arya truly wishes to make amends, I'm willing to forgive her. But let's not rush into a decision like this. We can start by getting to know each other better. Arya, her embarrassment slowly turning into relief, nodded in agreement. She realized that this offer was a second chance for her to prove that she could change and be a better person. Lady Phoenix smiled warmly, grateful for Issei's understanding. Thank you, Issei-kun. That's a fair and reasonable request. We'll give you both the time you need to get acquainted. Lord Phoenix, while initially surprised by Issei's response, respected his decision. Very well, Issei. We will abide by your terms. Arya, you will have to prove yourself not only to Issei but to our family as well. Issei, always considerate of the consequences of his actions, couldn't help but raise a crucial question. What if Thomas wakes up and protests against this? I mean, he is your son, and I wouldn't want to create further conflicts within your family. Lord Phoenix and Lady Phoenix exchanged solemn glances. It was a question they had been dreading but knew they had to face eventually. Lady Phoenix spoke first, her voice filled with determination. Issei-kun, we have allowed Thomas to behave recklessly for far too long. His actions, especially his treatment of you, have gone unchecked. If he wakes up and protests, we will have to make it clear that his behavior will no longer be tolerated. Lord Phoenix nodded in agreement, his expression firm. You see, Issei, we have failed as parents in allowing our son to become such a bully. It's time we take responsibility and ensure that he understands the gravity of his actions. If necessary, we will punish him and make him understand the consequences of his behavior. Issei appreciated their honesty and willingness to confront the issue head-on. He didn't want to be the cause of further discord within their family, but he also knew that tolerating Thomas's actions would only perpetuate the cycle of mistreatment. Thank you for being honest with me, Issei said sincerely. I hope Thomas can change for the better too. Everyone deserves a chance to grow and become a better person. Lady Phoenix smiled warmly at Issei's compassionate words. Issei-kun, you truly have a kind heart. We will do our best to guide our son onto a better path, just as you've shown us the way to be better as well. Serzich's, with a warm smile, continued, Issei-kun, I have one more thing to propose. I would like you, Akeno and Asia to take a vacation to America. You've all been through so much and you deserve some time to relax and enjoy yourselves. Issei blinked in surprise at the unexpected offer. America? That sounds incredible, but why? Serzich's chuckled, well, for one, it's a beautiful place with many exciting things to see and do. But the main reason is this. It would be a perfect opportunity for you and Arya to get to know each other better. If she is to be married to you, it's important that you both have a chance to bond and understand each other. Arya, who had been listening quietly, blushed at the suggestion but didn't voice any objections. She understood the importance of building a connection with Issei, especially after the events that had transpired. Issei, after a moment of consideration, smiled and nodded. That sounds like a great idea, Serzich's-sama. Akeno-san, Asia, what do you think? Akeno beamed, I think it's a wonderful idea, Issei-kun. A vacation to America sounds like a dream come true. Asia, her eyes sparkling with excitement, agreed wholeheartedly, yes, Issei-san. I'd love to go on a vacation with you. Serzich's was pleased with their positive responses. Excellent. I'll make the necessary arrangements for your trip. It will be a fantastic opportunity for all of you to relax and strengthen your bonds. Just remember to have fun and make the most of it. As Serzich suggested the idea of a vacation to America, Akeno's expression took an unexpected turn. Her usual serene demeanor transformed into a mischievous smile that sent shivers down Issei's spine. She declared in a sultry tone, Issei-kun, the one who will marry you first is me, without a doubt. Arya can come in later, if she wishes. Arya, who had been relatively quiet until now, clenched her fists and glared at Akeno. What? Who do you think you are, Akeno Himejima? Both girls walked up to each other as their eyes pushed up against one another, their eyes locked in a fierce glare. Asia, caught in the middle of this brewing storm, looked from one girl to the other, her eyes wide with fear. She stammered, maybe we should talk about this calmly. But Akeno and Arya were beyond listening to reason at this point. They were locked in a fierce battle of wills over Issei, their voices rising with each passing second. Akeno's smile grew wider and she purred, Issei-kun, don't you agree that we make a lovely couple? Issei, now thoroughly frightened, tried to defuse the situation. Ladies, please, let's not fight over this. We can find a solution that makes everyone happy. Arya, her face flushed with anger, retorted, Issei is mine by right of engagement. You can't just swoop in and claim him, Akeno. Akeno's eyes flashed with determination as she countered, oh, I can and I will. Issei-kun, you should choose the one who truly understands you. Issei's face turned beet red and he stammered, "Too don't know what to say." Asia, still trying to mediate, said with a trembling voice, "Maybe we can all spend time with Issei-san and get to know him better before deciding anything." But her suggestion fell on deaf ears as Akeno and Arya continued their intense debate, completely ignoring Issei's discomfort and Asia's attempts at peacekeeping. The argument over who would marry Issei first raged on, creating a chaotic scene in the hospital room. Issei couldn't help but wish for a way to escape this predicament. Amidst the escalating argument between Akeno and Arya, Issei felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. He never imagined that his presence could lead to such a heated rivalry between two beautiful and powerful devil women. In his mind, he was just a simple pervert who enjoyed his fantasies about the opposite, not someone who could incite such passionate conflict. As the two girls continued to exchange heated words, Issei turned his attention to Asia, who was caught in the middle of this chaos. Her face was a mix of worry and confusion, and her hands trembled slightly. Issei reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder, offering what little comfort he could muster in this situation. "It's going to be alright, Asia," Issei whispered, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "Don't worry about their argument. We'll figure this out together." Asia looked up at Issei with tearful eyes and nodded. "Issei-san, I just want everyone to get along. I don't like seeing them fight." Issei managed a weak smile. "I know, Asia. We'll try to talk to Akeno and Arya and find a solution that makes everyone happy. But for now, let's focus on you getting better, okay?" Asia nodded again, and Issei gently wiped away a tear that had escaped from her eye. He couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the situation. He was just a high school student who had been thrust into the world of devils, angels, and fallen angels, and now he was at the center of a love triangle between two incredibly powerful and beautiful women. Meanwhile, in the background, Ajuka Beelzebub, the second strongest devil and the current Mayu Beelzebub, watched the unfolding drama with a deadpan expression. He couldn't help but shake his head at the chaos that had erupted. Ajuka leaned over to Serzich's and muttered, "You've started a war, my friend, and poor Issei may not come out of this unscathed." Serzich's, his face a mix of guilt and regret, looked down at the floor. "I know, Ajuka. I never should have mentioned Issei and Arya's marriage in front of Akeno. I didn't think it would lead to all of this." Ajuka sighed. "Well, it's done now. We'll have to find a way to resolve this peacefully, or it could lead to even greater problems. And you, Serzich's, might have to do some serious damage control." Serzich's let out a dramatic sigh, realizing that he would indeed have to deal with more paperwork to resolve the Akeno-Arya-Issei situation. He muttered to himself, "I never thought being the Mayu would involve so much paperwork." Ajuka patted Serzich's on the back, trying to console his friend. There, Serzich's. We'll get through this together. Just think of all the paperwork as a test of your leadership skills." Serzich's gave Ajuka a weak smile. "You always know how to find the silver lining, Ajuka." Meanwhile, Akeno and Arya's argument had escalated to the point where they were practically nose to nose, their faces contorted with anger and jealousy. It was a battle of wills between the two powerful devil women, and poor Issei felt like a helpless bystander caught in the middle of a storm. Akeno's eyes glowed with intensity as she declared, "I won't let anyone take Issei-kun away from me, especially not some newcomer like you, Arya." Arya, equally determined, shot back, "Issei is mine by the will of my father, and I won't let anyone else claim him." Issei, still trying to comfort Asia, couldn't help but sweat nervously. He whispered to Asia, "This is getting out of hand, Asia. What should we do?" Asia looked up at Issei, her eyes filled with worry. Maybe we should talk to them. Try to make them understand that we don't want to cause any trouble." Issei nodded in agreement. "You're right, Asia. Let's try to reason with them." As Issei and Asia cautiously approached the bickering devil women, they could feel the tension in the room. It was as if lightning might strike at any moment. "Excuse me, Akeno-san, Arya-san," Issei began tentatively, "we don't want to come between you two or cause any problems. We just want to find a solution that makes everyone happy." Akeno and Arya momentarily halted their argument, turning their attention to Issei and Asia. Akeno's expression softened slightly, but she was still wary. "Issei-kun, you don't understand. You're special to me, and I don't want to lose you to someone else." Arya, on the other hand, looked conflicted. She glanced at Issei and then at Akeno, her determination waning just a bit. I don't want to hurt anyone either, but my father has made a decision, and I must honor it." Asia spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. "Can't we all find a way to be friends? Issei-san is a kind person, and he cares about both of you. Maybe we can figure out a way to make this work without fighting." Issei nodded in agreement. "Asia's right. We should try to find a compromise. Maybe we can spend time together and get to know each other better." Ajuka, who had been observing the scene, couldn't help but interject with a hint of humor. Well, it seems our young devil trio is trying to negotiate a truce. How adorable. Serzich's, who had been dreading more paperwork, saw a glimmer of hope in the situation. You know what, Ajuka? Maybe they can figure this out on their own. We'll just have to wait and see. Akeno and Arya exchanged uncertain glances, both realizing that they didn't want to hurt Issei or each other. Perhaps there was a way to find common ground and build a unique relationship that worked for all of them. As the tension in the room began to dissipate, Issei, Akeno and Arya decided to give compromise a chance. They would embark on a vacation together, hoping that spending time away from their familiar surroundings would help them bond and understand each other better. The plane soared through the sky as Issei, Akeno, Arya and Asia were on their way to America. Arya and Akeno sat in their respective seats, not too far apart but far enough to exchange disapproving glares. The tension in the cabin was palpable, and Issei sighed as he watched the clouds pass by outside the window. Meanwhile, Asia, who was sitting next to Issei, clung to his arm nervously. She felt the animosity between Akeno and Arya, and it made her anxious. Issei patted her hand reassuringly, trying to calm her nerves. As the flight continued, Issei's mind drifted back to a conversation he had with Serzich's, the devil Mau, in his office before the trip. It had been a warning about the situation in America, where the Greek gods had established their domain. Issei remembered Serzich's words vividly. Flashback begins. Issei, Serzich's had said, his tone serious, when you go to America, you need to be careful. The Greek gods have made it their domain, and they are known to be temperamental and selfish. They do not take kindly to intruders or those who disrupt their affairs. Issei had listened intently, realizing the gravity of the situation. He had asked, what should I be careful of, Serzich's Sama? Serzich's had continued, there is a place in America called Camp Half-Blood. It is a camp for the children of the Greek gods. Be cautious when dealing with them. They have powers and connections that could make your stay in America more complicated if you cross them. Issei had nodded, understanding the warning. He knew that the Greek pantheon was known for their pride and unpredictability. Confronting them would be unwise, and Serzich's advice had left a deep impression on him. Flashback ends. Back on the plane, Issei couldn't help but worry about the potential encounters they might have with the children of the Greek gods. He turned to Akeno and Arya, who were still locked in the silent battle of glares. Listen, you two, Issei began, trying to ease the tension. We're going to America, and it's important that we get along. We don't want to cause any trouble, especially in a place where the Greek gods are known to be touchy. Akeno and Arya exchanged reluctant glances, realizing the wisdom in Issei's words. They both nodded in agreement, silently acknowledging that they needed to set aside their differences for the sake of a peaceful trip. Issei turned to Asia, who still clung to his arm. He smiled at her and said, Asia, don't worry. We'll make sure this trip goes smoothly. Asia nodded, her fear subsiding as she found comfort in Issei's words. She knew that he would do his best to keep them safe and out of trouble. As the plane continued its journey towards America, Issei was lost in thought. He couldn't help but wonder about the warning Serzich's had given him regarding the Greek gods and their domain in the country. In the midst of his contemplation, a familiar voice entered his mind. It was Drag, the Red Dragon Emperor, communicating with him telepathically. Issei's eyes widened as he heard Drag's voice inside his head. Partner, Drag's voice resonated in Issei's mind, I need to warn you about something. You now possess Sunshine, the power of Esconer, your grandfather. It's an incredible power, but it comes with a history and some potential complications. Issei frowned, realizing the seriousness of Drag's tone. He replied, what do you mean, Drag? What history and complications are you talking about? Drag took a moment before responding, you see, your grandfather, Esconer, had some history with the Greek gods, particularly Zeus and Hera. There have been rumors and stories about their interactions, and it's safe to say that they weren't on the best of terms. Issei's curiosity was piqued, and he leaned into the telepathic conversation with Drag, urging him to elaborate. Tell me more, Drag. What happened between Gramps and the Greek gods? Why is there hostility? Drag began to recount the stories he had heard over the years, sharing the information with Issei. You see, Esconer's presence in the realm of the Greek gods wasn't welcomed with open arms. His overwhelming strength, thanks to Sunshine, made him a formidable force, and that caught the attention of the gods. Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, and Hera, his queen, were particularly wary of him. Issei could sense the tension in Drag's explanation. He pressed for more details, but why were they wary of Gramps? Was it because of his strength? Drag continued, partly. Esconer's strength made him a target of interest, but it was more than that. It said that Esconer's personality and pride clashed with the god's own pride. He was known for his strong sense of justice and his refusal to bend to the will of others, even gods. Issei's mind was racing, trying to piece together the information. So, there was a clash of personalities and pride between Gramps and the Greek gods. But what does that mean for us now, Drag? Braig's response carried a note of caution. It means we need to be cautious, especially when dealing with the Greek gods. They might remember Esconer, and their memories of him might not be favorable. We don't want to attract their attention or anger. Issei nodded in understanding, realizing the potential dangers that lay ahead. He knew that he had to tread carefully in a land that held a history of conflict with his grandfather. As the telepathic conversation concluded, Issei sat back in his seat, pondering the new information he had received. He was determined to make the best of their trip to America, but he also understood the need for caution and diplomacy when dealing with the Greek gods. The group had finally arrived in America, their destination filled with mystery, adventure, and potential danger. They had chosen a lodge near the beach, a place of beauty and serenity that contrasted sharply with the tumultuous events of their recent past. As they unpacked and settled into their new surroundings, the excitement in the air was palpable. The sound of the ocean's waves crashing against the shore filled the background, a soothing melody that seemed to promise moments of relaxation amidst the unknown. Issei, carrying his suitcase towards the lodge, was caught off guard when Akeno, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during the journey, suddenly wrapped her arms around him from behind. He could feel her warm breath on his ear as she nibbled playfully, sending shivers down his spine. Issei blushed furiously as Akeno's teasing began. "Akeno, what are you doing?" he stammered, caught off guard by her sudden change in demeanor. Akeno's voice was sultry as she whispered into his ear, "Oh, Issei, I couldn't resist any longer. The beach, the warm weather, and being so close to you, it's all so tempting." Arya, who had been observing the scene from a distance, felt a pang of jealousy shoot through her. She watched the interaction between Issei and Akeno with a mix of envy and irritation. Her feelings for Issei were undeniable, but she hadn't anticipated the competition she would face from Akeno. Issei, still trying to regain his composure, mumbled, "Akeno, can't you save this for later? We have a lot to do, and we should focus on getting settled." Akeno pouted playfully but relented, stepping away from him. "Alright, Issei. But don't forget about it. We have all the time in the world, especially on this beautiful beach." Issei's heart raced as he realized the implications of Akeno's words. He was not oblivious to the affection Akeno had shown him, and her advances were becoming more frequent and open. At the same time, he couldn't help but be aware of Arya's presence and the feelings she harbored for him. Arya, who had been silent until now, finally approached the two with a forced smile. "It seems like you two are having a great time. I'm going to go explore the beach. Issei, would you like to join me?" Issei noticed the tension in her voice and the strained smile on her face. He didn't want to hurt her feelings, so he agreed, "Sure, Arya. Let's go check out the beach together." As they left the lodge and ventured towards the beach, Arya's jealousy and frustration were difficult to conceal. She tried to make small talk with Issei, but her heart wasn't in it. She was caught in a love triangle she hadn't expected, and it was taking a toll on her emotions. Issei, aware of Arya's discomfort, decided to address the elephant in the room. "Arya, I want you to know that I appreciate you coming with us on this trip. But I've noticed that things have been a bit complicated lately, and I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable." Arya looked at Issei with a mixture of sadness and longing. "Issei, I can't help how I feel, and I don't want to come between you and Akeno. But I also can't deny my own emotions." Issei nodded, understanding the complexity of the situation. "Arya, I value our friendship, and I don't want anything to change that. Let's enjoy this trip together as friends and deal with whatever comes our way." Arya smiled, her eyes brightening with gratitude. "Thank you, Issei. That means a lot to me." The beach, with its golden sands and the gentle sound of the ocean waves, was the perfect destination for some relaxation and fun. The group, clad in their swimwear, made their way to the shoreline, ready to take a refreshing swim. Akeno, in her white bikini, exuded an air of confidence and sensuality, her long hair cascading down her back. She couldn't help but notice the effect she had on Issei and decided to have a little fun with him. She playfully twirled a lock of her hair and gave him a sultry smile. "Issei, are you okay? You seem a little flustered." Issei, with his hormones running wild, was doing his best to keep his composure. Asia, in her light blue bikini, looked adorable and innocent as ever. She giggled at Akeno's tease but avoided making eye contact with Issei. Arya, donning her red bikini, blushed at the attention and felt a flutter in her heart, secretly pleased by Issei's reaction. Arya, donning her red bikini, blushed at the attention and felt a flutter in her heart, secretly pleased by Issei's reaction. Issei, struggling to maintain his cool, stammered, "I'll be right back. I just need to, cool off a bit." With that, he made a hasty retreat to a different part of the beach, leaving the girls to exchange knowing glances. As Issei found a quiet spot away from the others, he let out a deep sigh. The sight of Akeno, Asia and Arya and their bikiness had his heart racing and his thoughts in turmoil. He knew he needed to regain his composure or he would risk embarrassing himself further. In his moment of solitude, Drake, his partner and the Red Dragon Emperor, couldn't resist teasing him telepathically. Issei, my boy, you seem to be in quite the predicament. Issei grumbled, oh, come on, Drake. You're not making it any easier. Drake chuckled, his mental voice filled with amusement. You're a healthy young man, Issei. It's only natural to have those reactions. Just try to relax and enjoy the day. Issei appreciated Drake's attempt to lighten the mood, even if it did little to alleviate his embarrassment. He took a few deep breaths, trying to calm his racing heart and wayward thoughts. After a few minutes, he felt more compassed and made his way back to the group. As he returned, Akeno and the others greeted him with smiles, fully aware of the effect their beauty had on him. Issei, determined not to let his hormones get the best of him, grinned and said, sorry about that. I'm ready to enjoy the beach now. Akeno gave him a sly look. I'm glad you're feeling better, Issei. Let's make the most of our time here. The day had been filled with laughter and joy as Issei, Akeno, Asia and Arya reveled in their time at the beach. They shared moments of fun and bonding that allowed them to forget the complexities of their relationships, at least for a little while. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the scene as it became close to afternoon. As the group made their way back to their lodge, they were met with an unexpected encounter. Standing in front of their accommodation was a striking, muscular man with jet black hair, clad in a cool casual outfit and leaning nonchalantly against a sleek motorcycle. He sported a pair of sunglasses that concealed his eyes and a confident smirk graced his lips. This enigmatic man's attention was immediately drawn to Akeno and his gaze lingered on her, filled with unmistakable desire. He approached her with a flirty attitude, casting an admiring glance her way. Issei, who couldn't help but notice the man's advances, felt a mix of emotion, strangeness and anger churned within him. Drake, his trusty partner, reached out telepathically, warning Issei about the newcomer. He confirmed that the man standing before them was a god. Issei's heart sank at the realization. A god. This early into their journey. And the aura that the god exuded seemed to stoke his anger and desire for confrontation. Issei's frustration grew. A god. Why now? And which one? He couldn't help but feel provoked by the god's presence, as if it ignited a fiery rage within him. Drake's voice broke through his thoughts, advising caution and revealing his suspicion regarding the god's identity. With determination, Issei stepped in front of Akeno, his protectiveness evident in his stance. He confronted the god, his voice firm and challenging. Who are you, and why are you here? Issei demanded answers, unwilling to bow before this mysterious and cocky individual. The god's response would shape the course of their encounter. The god, undeterred by Issei's bravado, smirked and let out a dismissive laugh. A pipsqueak like you should know his place and bow before God. Though I can see you possess some insane power. I am Aries, the god of war. Issei, unflinchingly, met Aries' intense gaze and demanded an explanation for the god's presence. Why are you here? Issei asked, his voice laced with both curiosity and suspicion. Aries chuckled, the sound carrying an air of arrogance and power. I'm not here for a leisurely stroll, if that's what you're wondering, he replied. I've sensed something extraordinary about you. Issei wasn't one to back down easily, and he pressed further. Extraordinary? What are you talking about? Aries' sunglasses concealed his eyes, but his smirk was evident. I can sense the power of sunshine within you. The same power that belonged to Esconer. Issei's eyes widened at the mention of his adoptive grandfather. He had not expected this connection to be so readily apparent. Esconer was my adoptive grandfather, he admitted. The fact that Aries knew Esconer instantly set off warning bells in his mind. Aries' demeanor shifted, his tone growing colder and filled with disdain. Esconer, he muttered with a bitter undertone. I remember him well. Years ago, I crossed paths with that insufferable man. It was a fight that didn't even last a second. Issei listened with rapt attention, curious about the story that was unfolding before him. Aries continued, his voice carrying a sense of humiliation. Esconer flattened me without breaking a sweat. He crushed me, like I was nothing. The god's face contorted with anger, and his pride had clearly been wounded deeply. The implications of Aries' words were not lost on Issei. Esconer had bested the god of war with ease, and that fact seemed to have haunted Aries ever since. Issei took a step back, feeling the immense tension in the air. Akeno, Asia, and Arya were all bracing themselves for the impending confrontation, their powers manifesting around them as they prepared for battle. Arya's red-hot flames flickered and danced around her, a reflection of her rage and determination. Akeno's lightning crackled and sparked, a display of her unwavering loyalty and readiness to protect Issei. Asia's healing abilities were at the ready, a silent vow to keep her friend safe. Aries' twisted grin widened as he continued to taunt Issei, his voice oozing with malice. Oh, I plan to savor every moment of your suffering, boy. Killing you is just the start of my revenge. And those lovely ladies you have with you, well, they might provide me with some entertainment." Issei's eyes blazed with fury at Aries' callous words. He couldn't let this god of war harm his friends, and he certainly wouldn't allow any harm to come to Akeno, Asia, and Arya. Akeno's anger flared as she clenched her fists. Lightning crackled around her, a warning to Aries not to underestimate her powers. Arya's flames burned hotter, her eyes locked onto the arrogant deity. She wouldn't let anyone threaten her new friends, especially not her potential future husband. Asia's expression was a mixture of fear and determination. She might not have combat abilities like the others, but she was willing to do whatever it took to protect Issei and her friends. Issei stepped forward, his anger manifesting in a burst of fiery energy around him. "You won't touch them, Aries. You'll have to get through me first." Aries' laughter was like a chilling echo, sending shivers down their spines. "Ah, how valiant. But you see, I'm a god, and you are just a mere human, or so I thought. It seems you've inherited a little something from dear old Esconer." Aries' words struck a chord with Issei, who now understood the gravity of the situation. Esconer's legacy was not only a source of power, but also a beacon for those who sought to settle old scores. Braig's voice echoed in Issei's mind, urging caution. "Be careful, Issei. Aries is a formidable opponent. We can't underestimate him." Issei nodded mentally, knowing that the battle against a god would not be easy. Nevertheless, he couldn't back down, not when the lives of his friends were at stake. Akeno, her determination unwavering, took a step forward. "We're with you, Issei. We won't let him harm us." Issei smiled, grateful for the unwavering support of his friends. "Let's do this, then." Aries, sensing their defiance, grew even more agitated. His fists clenched, and his aura darkened. "Enough talking. It's time for some divine punishment." With a burst of speed, Aries lunged at Issei, aiming a powerful punch at his chest. Issei reacted quickly, activating his boosted gear to defend against the attack. The collision of their fists created a shockwave, sending sand and debris flying in all directions. Akeno and Asia backed away to ensure they didn't get caught in the crossfire, while Arya summoned a fiery shield to protect herself. Issei and Aries clashed with titanic force, their blows echoing across the beach. Aries was a seasoned warrior, and his godly strength was evident as he pushed Issei back with relentless strikes. Issei knew that in his current state, he wouldn't be able to defeat Aries, the god of war. Gritting his teeth, Issei made a quick decision. He called upon the power of sunshine, his grandfather Esconer's legacy, and summoned the divine Axe Ridda from the heavens. The golden axe descended with a radiant gleam, landing in Issei's hand. Braig's voice resounded in Issei's mind as he chanted the words of his balance breaker. Welsh dragon balance breaker mode. Sunshine. Issei's armor transformed, empowered by the radiant energy of sunshine. His body became a beacon of divine power, and his strength surged to new heights. Aries, seeing the transformation, sneered with a mixture of admiration and arrogance. The Red Dragon Emperor with the power of sunshine, an intriguing combination. "You are indeed a formidable threat. I should eliminate you before you become a nuisance to the gods." Issei, now in his enhanced state, faced Aries with renewed determination. His eyes blazed with righteous fury as he swung Ridda, clashing with Aries' divine might. The force of their blows created shockwaves that sent shockwaves of energy rippling through the beach. Akeno, Asia, and Arya watched in awe as Issei fought valiantly, wielding the power of sunshine. They could sense the incredible energy irradiating from him, and it filled them with hope that Issei could prevail. Issei's attacks, empowered by sunshine, pushed Aries back. The god of war struggled to maintain his composure as Issei's onslaught continued. Issei, driven by his desire to protect his friends and himself, fought with unwavering determination. Arya's flames danced around her, reflecting the intensity of the battle. Akeno's lightning crackled, and Asia's eyes shimmered with both fear and belief in Issei's strength. As the battle raged on, Issei's powerful strikes began to wear down Aries. The god, who had initially appeared invincible, now found himself on the defensive. Issei's combination of balance breaker and sunshine had turned the tide of the battle in his favor. As Aries, consumed by rage and desperation, roared in defiance, he made a fateful decision. In a blinding flash of divine power, he unleashed his divine form, a transformation that had the potential to turn regular mortals to dust with a mere glance. Aries' immense aura radiated with destructive energy, and it threatened to consume everything in its path. Braig's voice echoed, issuing a grave warning. "Everyone, look away. Aries' divine form can kill with just a glance. Don't let your eyes meet his." Akeno, Arya, and Asia heeded the warning, covering their eyes and turning away from the blinding radiance that emanated from Aries. Issei, too, shielded his eyes and followed their lead, understanding the danger that Aries' divine form posed. Braig, ever the vigilant partner, took it a step further. He used his magical abilities to create a protective barrier around Issei's eyes, shielding him from the devastating effects of Aries' transformation. Issei could feel the energy swirling around him, a powerful safeguard provided by his partner, Drake. As the blinding glow of Aries' divine form slowly subsided, Issei could sense the change in the battlefield. Aries was now in his divine state, radiating an overwhelming presence that surpassed anything Issei had encountered before. The godly power and divine energy that emanated from Aries were suffocating. Issei cautiously lowered his hands, and with Drake's protective enchantment, he could look upon Aries without being instantly obliterated by his divine gaze. The sight before him was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Akeno, Arya, and Asia, still shielded from the deadly effects, watched as Issei confronted Aries in his divine form. The intensity of the battle was reaching unprecedented levels, and the fate of the beach hung in the balance. Aries, now fully transformed, regarded Issei with an arrogant smirk. "Behold my divine form, Issei Haidu. This is the power of a god, a power that will put an end to your defiance." Issei, resolute and determined, pointed Ridda at Aries. "I don't care if you're a god. I won't back down. I fight to protect my friends and myself." Drake's voice echoed within Issei's mind, encouraging him to use Sunshine's power to its fullest. Issei's armor, enhanced by the divine energy of Sunshine, began to shine even brighter. He was prepared to face the god of war, regardless of the odds stacked against him. Aries, seething with anger, unleashed a devastating attack, a torrent of divine energy that threatened to engulf Issei. Issei, fueled by the power of Sunshine, stood his ground, holding his divine axe, Ridda, to defend against the onslaught. The clash of powers sent shockwaves through the beach, creating massive craters in the sand. The sheer force of their confrontation was reshaping the landscape. The battle between Issei and Aries raged on with relentless fury. Issei, empowered by Sunshine, wielded the divine axe, Ridda, with unmatched precision, while Aries, in his divine form, brandished a deadly, blood-red spear. The clash of their weapons sent sparks flying and reverberated across the beach. Aries sneered, his eyes filled with arrogance. "You may have Sunshine, Issei Haidu, but you cannot defeat the god of war so easily." Issei's response was a fierce swing of Ridda, which sent a shockwave of golden flames hurtling toward Aries. The god deftly parried the attack with his spear, but the sheer force of the blast created a massive explosion, scattering sand and debris in all directions. Issei smirked, his determination unwavering. "I don't intend to make it easy for you, Aries." Their combat was a breathtaking display of power and skill. Issei's movements were fluid and precise as he swung Ridda with a combination of grace and ferocity. Aries, the seasoned god of battle, countered with a masterful display of combat techniques, making every move count. Aries lunged forward, his spear thrusting with deadly precision. Issei blocked the strike with Ridda, the impact creating a shockwave that sent ripples through the air. The force of the blow sent Issei skidding back across the sand, but he quickly regained his footing. Issei grinned, his golden armor gleaming. "You're strong, Aries." Aries, unrelenting, pressed the attack. He unleashed a barrage of lightning-fast strikes with his bloody spear, each one aimed at Issei's vital points. Issei's response was a combination of speed and agility as he expertly parried Aries' blows, narrowly avoiding each deadly thrust. Arya, Akeno, and Asia watched in awe as the battle unfolded. Issei's mastery of Ridda and the power of Sunshine was a sight to behold. Aries, despite his divine form, was facing a determined and powerful adversary. Issei, with a burst of speed, closed the distance between them and swung Ridda with tremendous force. Aries blocked the attack with his spear, their weapons locking in a fierce clash. Sand and sparks flew from the point of contact, creating a dazzling display of power. Aries' grin widened as he pushed against Issei. "You fight well, mortal, but you can't keep up with a god." Issei's response was a burst of golden flames that erupted from Ridda, forcing Aries to step back. The god of war was momentarily caught off guard, but he quickly regained his composure. As the intense battle between Issei and Aries raged on, Issei realized that he needed to bring this conflict to a swift and decisive conclusion. The sun was now at its peak in the sky, casting its brilliant rays upon the beach. Issei's eyes focused on the celestial source of his power, and he raised his hand toward the sun. The radiant energy of Sunshine began to gather around his hand, swirling and coalescing into a giant miniature sun. Drake's voice resounded in Issei's mind, urging him to finish the battle. End at Issei. But the resounding roar, Issei declared, "Cruel sun." The gathered power within his hand was unleashed in a blinding flash of incandescent brilliance. The mini-sun hurtled toward Aries with unstoppable force, leaving a blazing trail in its wake. The moment of impact was cataclysmic. The collision between the mini-sun and Aries sent shockwaves rippling through the air. The explosion that followed was of such immense magnitude that it shook the entire country of America. The sea, bearing witness to this spectacular display of power, began to churn and boil as the water evaporated at an astonishing rate. The combined energy of Sunshine and Issei's determination had created a devastating force that dwarfed anything Aries could muster. Aries, caught in the heart of the explosion, was enveloped in the searing heat and blinding light. The force of the blast sent him hurtling backward, his godly form unable to withstand the incredible power of Issei's attack. Issei, his golden armor still aglow with the radiance of sunshine, watched as the explosion's shockwaves continued to ripple outward. The aftermath of the attack left a smoldering crater in the sand, and the atmosphere was thick with the residual energy of the battle. Akeno, Arya and Asia, who had been watching the battle with bated breath, were left in awe of the immense power Issei had displayed. The beach had been transformed into a battleground, and the sea was still in turmoil from the intense heat. Issei, though victorious, knew that he had pushed himself to the limit. His armor dissipated, and he dropped to his knees, panting heavily. Drake's voice reassured him, "You did it, partner. You defeated Aries." Akeno, Arya and Asia gathered around Issei, their expressions filled with concern and worry for his well-being. Issei, despite his victory over Aries, had pushed himself to the limit during the intense battle, and it was evident that he was exhausted and in need of care. Akeno gently reached out to touch Issei's face, her fingers brushing his cheek with tenderness. "Issei, you're hurt. We need to tend to your injuries. You should have told us if you were feeling this weak." Issei's fatigue was apparent, and he leaned into Akeno's touch, appreciating her concern. "I didn't want to worry you, Akeno. I'm just glad we're all safe." Arya, her fiery aura now calmed, knelt beside Issei, her eyes filled with genuine worry. "Issei, you're amazing, but you don't always have to bear the burden alone. We're here for you." Asia, the embodiment of kindness, nodded in agreement. "Issei, please let us help you. You've done so much for us, and now it's our turn to take care of you." Issei felt a warmth in his heart as he looked at the three girls who meant so much to him. "Thank you, Akeno, Arya, Asia. I'm lucky to have you by my side." Akeno, Arya and Asia began to tend to Issei's wounds, their gentle touch and caring gestures, soothing his fatigue. As they worked together to help him recover, Issei couldn't help but feel grateful for the bonds they shared and the support they provided. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow SHADOWKING2030 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.